Good evening, everyone. First, I would like to thank everyone for their patience as we have a little bit of a late start this evening. But welcome to the August 22nd school board meeting of the Derry Cooperative School District. We will get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will get started with the approval of minutes. I believe we have the minutes from July 25th. We'll start with the non-public minutes from July 25th. Take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
I have a first by Kearney to approve the non-public minutes from July 25th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. We'll move on to the public meetings from July 25th. Do I hear a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve the minutes.
First by Kearney.
Second.
Second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. All right. We'll get kicked off and started with Jane. And I believe we have an adequacy update.
Oh, she turned it on. Okay. They just released yesterday the new adequacy amounts for the 23-24 school year. And we had anticipated that there would be some changes from what we had budgeted last year for this year's revenue source. And I have asked Attorney Gordon Graham if he'd join us. He really is an expert in this area. But to give you an idea, when we budgeted last October for adequacy, we had budgeted $24,175,956, and their anticipated amount for this coming year is $25,142,995. And what I'd like to do is ask Attorney Graham to speak to you regarding some of the options that the district will have because of the unanticipated revenue that the district's going to see with revenue in the next month or so.
Good evening, folks. So, as I understand it, the district is going to be receiving a certain amount of revenue that it has the option of calling a special school district meeting to, well, basically it has two options. One option is to allow any of the additional revenue to go back to reduce taxes. The second option is to allow or to grab onto some of that revenue and hold on to it by having a special school district meeting to appropriate additional funds. This is not just unanticipated revenue. Unanticipated revenue has restrictions on it, and it does not include money that's dispersed through the adequacy formula. So adequacy money that comes to the district as a result of changes to legislation that were passed after the district adopted its budget have a special law specifically to deal with the option for districts to deal with that change in the law. That's RSA 197:3A. That law allows the district to hold a special school district meeting to seek an appropriation of all or a part of that money for any purposes that were discussed or for the general support of the school at the annual school district meeting. So that's one of the options to appropriate the additional 600 and, how much exactly is it, Jane? The amount that is eligible for it? I think I have it here but I don't have my glasses on.
That's okay. The total amount, the difference of what we had budgeted and what we're going to receive is $967,000, but I know that There is a difference for the
Right, so
change in the formula.
The 900 and some odd thousand dollars is the total difference in the amount that was received, but only 690,230 of it could be appropriated. And the reason for that is because that's the amount that relates to changes in the formula for adequacy. The state has calculated that number and it's sent that amount out. So if you held a special meeting, that $690,230 is the amount that the district would have available to it to appropriate, because and I can try and explain any of this if you'd like me to, but there's a difference between the amount that you can appropriate as a result of changes to the formula and changes to the law, and the amount that's the district receives as a result of demographic changes. Demographic changes aren't captured by the authority under 197.3A, and you cannot appropriate that additional money. That money would have to go back to reduce taxes. So that's one option. The other option is to manage your unassigned fund balance by and many districts are doing this, and basically if the district does not want to immediately spend that money, what it can do is, because the district has the ability to retain up to about $3.5 million of unassigned fund balance, it can retain more fund balance than it was otherwise planning on retaining, and allow this additional 900 and some odd thousand dollars that the district is receiving for additional adequacy to go back to reduce taxes, but thereby allow you to retain more unassigned fund balance. I believe the district had projected last year that it was going to return $3 million in unassigned fund balance. I'm not exactly sure where your unassigned fund balance is right now. It hasn't been audited yet, but Jane and I were talking before the meeting. It's around 2.7, 2.9, something like that.
Right, of unaudited. Unreserved, yeah.
Unaudited amount. But it can utilize. You can mix and match, if you will, and not hold a special school district meeting if you'd want to do that. I will say this. With respect to the special school district meeting, it's a very simple process. It's not a cumbersome meeting. It's a one-time meeting. It's the old-fashioned type of school district meeting, a traditional school district meeting. Doesn't involve a ballot vote. There's a abbreviated procedure for calling the meeting. From the time the district decides it wants to call the meeting until the time it holds the meeting ends up being only about 4 weeks. It's a really streamlined process, and it's a one-time deal, and the voters that show up would be the voters that decide as to whether or not any amount that the district was proposing would be approved or not approved. There are other restrictions with respect to that special school district meeting. There can't be petition warrant articles, no other changes other than the amount that the district has requested could be added to that warrant. But the voters would have the ability at that meeting to approve the additional appropriation, amend it to a smaller number, or defeat it if they wanted to. So that's an option. So basically there are three options. One is to do nothing and allow the money to go back and be offsetting revenue to the district's tax rate. The second is for the district to have a special school district meeting to raise and appropriate up to $690,230 in additional adequacy money that the district has received that was a result of changes to the law after the district's meeting had occurred. And the third option is to do a combination of a little bit of both if you choose to. So that's it. And the only caveat I'll add as to the first option is that you have the ability to because Derry has such flexibility with regard to its fund balance retention to manage this by moving, by dealing with how much you plan on retaining and allowing more of the additional adequacy to go back, and then just retaining more money for the future. All right?
Thank you, Gordon.
Is that clear as mud?
Yeah, I don't know, it seems 3 different options. It seems pretty clear to me, but does anyone on the board have questions for Gordon? All right. David?
Gordon, thank you very much. I have a question, but it's a little different from what you went over on the adequacy schedule. So Derry, for hold harmless, Derry gets $4.7 million on the adequacy schedule, which is almost double than any other town in the state. If I remember, we're looking through the list. Is there still a path where in fiscal year 26, that's getting clawed back over 10 years? Is that still in play?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, when it gets clawed back, over 10 years, it's solid for the first 2 years of the biennium, and then every 2 years of the biennium, it'll be reduced by a total of 20% over those 2 years. So over 10 years, it will disappear, that hold harmless amount.
And
If there are any other legislative changes
Yeah.
or Supreme Court decisions that alter all this.
Gotcha.
And I think you've all been at this long enough to know that this changes every couple of years. So this is what we have for the next couple of years. But I wouldn't take money to the bank or decide that money wasn't going to be altered in some way. You know, there's so many. There are 2 lawsuits that are pending right now before the Superior Court. They're both going to go back up to the Supreme Court once they've been decided. So who knows where we're going to be.
I think Paul has a question.
I do. I had a question on option 3, on the, for lack of a better term, mix and match. How much money is there that do we have the latitude to move around under option 3? You outlined the $690,000 under option 2. Is it the same amount that we have to pass up in different areas, or?
Well, the only option that the district has is related to the $690,000. The
Okay,
other,
so the 690 is really the only money that we have any discretion over?
That's correct.
No matter what option we're in?
That's correct.
Got it.
But that's true, Paul. But just remember that the other additional adequacy that you're receiving is also going to go back to
Right.
Reduce taxes.
Yeah.
So it can factor into your calculations about how much money you retain as unassigned fund balance. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Without impacting the tax rate. I mean, whatever your goal is, and I know you folks have a lot of goals. You've got a lot of maintenance items that you're looking at. You're trying to build up capital reserve funds, and the questions are, you know, I don't want to put them in your mind, but you've got a lot of questions about how you want to handle that. Right. I'm here to try and be a resource. I have lots of ideas, but it's not my board, it's your board. And all I want to do is give you the information. You know, money from, I would say this, if the district wants to spend additional money that it believes that it wants to increase the budget this year, then it should have a special school district meeting to tap into that $690,000. If, on the other hand, you want to make sure you level the tax rate and keep the tax rate about exactly where it was projected to be at the time of the district meeting, you want to return as much, at least as much as was forecasted when you were establishing the budget and went to the school district meeting, around $3 million. Retaining the rest of it as unassigned fund balance would allow you then at the annual meeting next year to appropriate from surplus to capital reserve funds. That's one idea. There may be other reasons to go about doing that. But those are kind of your options, if that makes any sense. you know, you never know whether fund balance that's been retained won't be scooped up for other reasons because of emergencies that arise during the year and emergency appropriations that might be necessary. But it's pretty unlikely. I mean, you folks usually have the ability to withstand those kinds of changes that arise during the course of the year. But so.
Brenda, you have a question?
Yeah, so I remember we did this in 2011, had a special meeting for money that I believe it was also,
Chair, if we could ensure proximity to the microphone, please.
oh, sorry. I believe we did this in 2011 with adequacy funds. So there's a difference between the 690 and the 967. What happens to that 270 round figure?
That $300,000 difference
Yeah.
is automatically going to be just additional revenue to the district when the Department of Revenue Administration establishes the tax
Thanks,
rate
that's
in
what I thought. I
October.
just wanted to be sure I had the right thought.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, we don't have any option with respect to that additional revenue. Except, as I said, to look at it as additional revenue.
I believe you mentioned most people take option 2. Could you expand a little bit on why you believe that is? On these two options, I believe earlier you had said that option 2, you found more people tend to go along those lines. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
No, I think it depends on the financial situation of each district that's looking at this. If they have immediate needs and there's a substantial additional amount of adequacy that they're receiving, they may need to address those immediate needs with a special school district meeting. And so that's one option. Also, some districts have not adopted the authority to retain unassigned fund balance, or some districts have maxed out the amount of unassigned fund balance that they've already retained, and therefore they can't build that up because they already have that much. So therefore, they're either going to allocate and appropriate and ask voters to appropriate the additional amount, or they're going to allow it to go and reduce taxes. I mean, one of the things that you want to keep an eye out on is the fact that that 690 this year, that's additional revenue, is probably not going to be around next year because the formulas then will have been established, and when you get your projection next year, it will be built into the projection. It's not going to be a larger amount all of a sudden. It will be additional adequacy that you're getting at the start of the year, and you'll know it when you're establishing the budget for the 2024 school year, you know, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Gordon? Oh, go ahead, Brenda.
One more question. So, sorry. We go to a special school district meeting and the vote is no. What
Yep.
happens?
The vote is no. That means that the board would then have the answer, and that money would not be appropriated, and it would be, that $690,000 would be returned to reduce taxes.
Thanks. Again, that's what I
Okay.
thought, but I wanted to be sure.
You know, it would be possible for the district, even at that late date, to decide how much retainage it wanted to retain, but you could decide what, depending on what the voters' intent was by their voting no, what to do with that. That's a political decision. I won't venture into that.
But that would be the same as option 1, which is a default, right?
Yeah,
The money would, okay, so option 1 and voting it down on a special meeting would result in the same thing.
that's correct.
Okay.
That's pretty much the, yep.
The only question I have, and I don't know if this is for you, Gordon, but the timing consideration, it says fall of 2023. I know fall technically starts September 21st, is that right? I guess when would we, as a board, need to make a decision on either if we were to go with option 1, which would return the money to the taxes, Or if we were to hold a special meeting, or to do option 3, when would we need to make a decision as a board?
You haven't made it already? No, I'm teasing. Well, I would say probably as soon as possible. I mean, it doesn't have to be tonight, but it should be fairly soon. And the reason for that is this. In order to call a special school district meeting, as I said, it's going to take at least 4 weeks to do that. And until that process is complete, if you choose to go that route, you know, until that process is complete, the tax rate for the town can't be established. Now, I think your tax rates has been established typically mid to late October, and it can go as late as November. But the town wants to get those bills out as soon as possible, so that folks don't have a Christmas present with paying their taxes, if you will. And so, they have to go out. They really do need to go out. So it's a matter of making sure that that process is completed in a timely basis so that you're able to have the tax rate established so that tax bills can go out. So I would suggest that, you know, you don't want to delay any later than mid-September for making the final decision about where you're going to go with this. And you also have October 1, I believe, to get your final statement of revenues in to DRA.
Yes, and we have our DOE 25, which is due September 1.
Yeah.
And unreserved fund is a little bit further down on our agenda, but that's going to tie into this piece because right now we don't have the $3 million to return based on what we had projected. Because remember, we did the warrant article for 1.8 million, and so the remaining portion unaudited is 2.9. So when Gordon's talking about making a decision for that 600,000, keep in mind the 2.9 is what you have to think about as unreserved, and you either can return all of the 2.9 to offset taxes or retain some or all of it in a retained fund. So that, and because I have to submit, I can do an extension for the DOE 25, but the DOE 25 is what New Hampshire Department of Ed bases all of their numbers on. So they're pretty strict on when you get those reports in, and they are allowing a waiver because of this.
Right.
So we can apply for one and have it a couple weeks later, but at the latest, I would need that by the September, is it 12th? September 12th meeting if possible.
Yeah, the waiver is only for 30 days for districts that are not in an emergency situation. I mean, and so you couldn't get it for more than 30 days. It's going to have to be mid-September in order to get the DOE 25 in, so that the DOE 25 can then be the DOE can do its work, and then it can go over to DRA for them to do their work so that the tax rate can be established.
Perfect. Any other comments or questions for Gordon? I guess well, thank you for coming out tonight. We always appreciate you and instilling your knowledge on us and providing us as much information as you can.
Pleasure. If you have any other questions, let me know.
All right, will do.
All right.
Before we move on to the Honeywell portion, do we want to, does anyone have any thoughts? I mean, obviously, we have, like Gordon said and Jane said, we need to know by the next meeting. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments about the adequacy, the changes in some of the that we've seen? And then I guess the other question is, do we feel confident that by the next meeting we would be able to make a decision? Are there any other unanswered questions that you guys might have?
I think when we have our discussion in item 6, we'll probably delve a lot more into that. But, and again, then Jane can give us her thoughts on that piece too. So that's my thought. Maybe we wait till item 6 and we kind of dive into it then. And then I'm sure we can do something by the 12th, I would think.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I would agree with him.
Okay. All right. Well, Jane, I will pass it back to you. I believe we have Honeywell here. So we'll invite the Honeywell folks up, and we'll look forward to that presentation. Thank you for coming out.
Yes, so Honeywell is here to present basically a summary again of the ESSER 3 projects for the HVAC projects that we had brought to you before, and we did put it back in the board packet just to kind of refresh everybody on the dollar amounts. And they also did the evaluation of the roof structures, I believe for Derry Village and South Range, because when they did their presentation to you, if you remember, they were not rated for the snow load, and they would have to have work done on them if we were to use any of the money for ESSER and move forward with the project through Honeywell. So I think that they're going to both talk about the existing project and their findings and cost for doing those upgrades.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jane, for the introduction. Yeah, we were last with you, I think it was June 20th. And then since then, at the direction of the board, we finalized the structural engineering. We did it for, we did not do it for Derry Village because of the decision that was made. We did it for South Range and the Grinnell School. So I'd like to just walk through briefly the summary that we provided to you folks on the 20th. I'll do that in an expedited fashion. I'm happy to slow this down at any time for questions. And then we'll just review where we stand at the result of the structural upgrades. I will say up front, we talked about structural, a couple of different approaches. The one that we focused on here was addressing the more minimal scale work. It was kind of some rectangles. I think you have a report at the back end of that. We did not take a holistic building approach. We took an approach to design enough structural work to support the HVAC systems going on, recognizing that you might have future decisions on these buildings as a whole going forward. So I'm going to just walk through the pages just to go back in time around the purpose of this. Last year, we were in front of the board, and you made a decision to proceed with a portion of your ESSER allocation to look at indoor air quality type projects in the district. We looked at them in kind of two ways. Buildings like the Hood School that have a wing that still doesn't have any fresh air mechanical ventilation in that particular wing, and then other locations of project work that we did previously back in 2015 where we didn't touch equipment that's now past the end of its rated useful life. So that was our scope focus. The decision you made then authorized us to proceed with engineering through a project development agreement. That allowed us to get 100% design engineering for the scope to make sure we're putting it out to bid and getting the best pricing possible. So when we presented to you in June 20th, that was the net result of that. And then just about a month prior to that, we had highlighted the structural issue with you, and the decision was made to advance it today. We are really backing into, I want to emphasize, the ESSER allocation for ESSER 3, which I believe is at least some of your source. The guidance, to the best of our knowledge, that all has to be done by end of September 2024. We haven't seen any change to that we're aware of at this point. So that means we need to be done with construction then. We are facing increasing lead times right now. We are up to 8 months or so what manufacturers will tell us to order equipment. We have found in other projects that we have going on is what they tell us at the point of an order can be far different at the point of when you think it's going to happen. We've had several that have extended a while. So there is just a reality of a sense of urgency that if you want to proceed with this project, that we're about 13 months away, and we need to take some steps to get an order placed. So I'm going to just proceed with a summary of the format that we reviewed with you last time. This is by building, so this is the Hood School. This is a summary table that's in all but Barca, and it just gives you a little bit of information around the systems that we're seeking to replace. These are existing systems, and its rated life. You can see over in the far right, it has a ASHRAE rated life, which is essentially the entity that oversees the heating and ventilation air conditioning world from an advisory standpoint, and there's projected rated life versus the actual. So every piece of equipment that we're essentially recommending here is beyond its rated life. So by proceeding with this project, it will help you reduce maintenance costs, it'll help you reduce future capital costs in doing so. The format was followed by a summary
a description of the exact scope that would be done, and this I know is in your packet. And then we have a project cost. I will footnote to you that if you were to do a compare of the project costs in this summary to what we had on the 20th to what we have today, there's a slight difference because we had some fixed costs that were part of our design and development associated with Derry Village that had to get reapportioned to the overall building. So I just wanted to highlight that as a footnote. I will proceed on to the next building, which is the Grinnell School. Same format here, just a little bit older amount of equipment versus its rated life across the board. We did put back into this building because the structural came in significantly less than we estimated. There was a music room, a heating and ventilation unit that we had scheduled for replacement. That is back in the project as part of the overall cost. So that's a scope increase beyond the structural. And then we have the Grinnell School scope of work that's summarized, and the total amount for this building is $786,319. Moving on to South Range. You'll see the scope of this building, one of the bigger building investments that there, a lot more equipment that's happening, and all of the equipment in this building is beyond its rated life. And then moving to the summary, you can see this written description, and then the investment for this building is just under $2.75 million. And the structural is not a part of this. I'll summarize that in a minute. West Running Brook Middle School. We chose here to do some refurbishment of equipment. A refurbishment point was it's equipment that's really hard to access with its location. So we felt like it's more cost effective for you to go in and basically kind of rebuild the engine. And then we will be replacing some of the equipment here. And you can see, again, the equipment that's listed, its rated life, and its current versus its current life. And this is a written description for West Running Brook in terms of the refurbishment and the replacement schedule. And the cost for that building is just under $740,000. Last building is the Barker School. And the Barker School has 3 different scope items, upgrading the existing controls that are back to 2004, so 19-year-old technology, and then some upgraded heating and ventilation upgrades throughout the building. Primary area will be in the office area. And the investment for that building is about $650,000. This provides a summary, same format as before, of the cost per building. I have added in this, as you can see, the structural component here. About 600 of that 616 is affiliated with South Range. The contractor that bid on this work, we invited several contractors, and the winning bidder was Morin, who you've worked with before. And so that would be the cost of that particular scope if you choose to do so. Again, the intent of most of that work is to address those large rectangular areas under the rooftop ventilation equipment to make sure we're addressing the snow load structural issues that we highlighted. So if you were to do all of that work, it summarizes up to $7,754,000 dollars. And so I want to highlight, if you were to pick less of that scope, the exact numbers here would not totally match because we'd have to then reapportion some development costs that were part of that initial design effort to the remaining buildings that are in there. And then just one other slide that we had, I kind of covered this up front around really the path forward if you want to proceed. We really, in an ideal world, want to get under contract by the end of September, if not sooner, so we can mobilize with equipment orders and all the process that goes. We do have some custom units, and the custom units involve some additional engineering on the manufacturer side with submittals, which adds to the timeline. So the desired state would be to get a decision as soon as possible, just simply because of the grant deadline. I will stop there, and we are welcome to address any questions that you have. Thank you for your time.
When you look at the total project, the cost summary, we have about $4.9 million available in ESSER 3. So if you were to go forward with the project in its entirety, you would have to find funding somewhere else for the difference of what we have available in ESSER 3. If you were to, and I'm not sure whether there is a large cost, the additional $600,000 for the structural for South Range. If you were to not do the South Range project, you would still have some funds available in ESSER 3 for additional programming that we would use next year. That's the same ESSER 3 that we've been using for unfinished learning program that happened this summer and positions, so.
Paul, sounds like you had a question?
Yeah, I had a quick question about, I hate when people say that, quick question, because they're never quick. A question about the, I know that we discussed, and I understand the need for reinforcement of the roof. What I was wondering is that, and this just dawned on me, would it be not cost necessarily, well, obviously we're looking at being cost effective, but strategically or from an engineering standpoint, possible to instead to putting it on the roof, to put something on a slab down next to the building and thus save whatever we need to save to do that. I don't know if that's something that would be viable, but then you'd have to re-engineer the delivery system into the building, which is, you know, going to take up some of that savings, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but basically.
No, I mean, there's no bad question. I'm going to let Bob address that question, though.
No, it's good. Is this on? Yeah. It's a good question. There's many reasons why that would not be a cost-effective or practical way to do it. Probably the biggest reason is that these units have hot water coils in them, and they have hot water piping going to them. So if you put a unit outdoors on the ground on a slab, you need to get that hot water piping out to that new unit and protect it from freezing. There are many other reasons that would cause significant cost if you did that, but that's probably one of the more concerning reasons that would keep Jeremy awake at night.
So if you actually designed and implemented that, be no cost savings, or it would be?
No, it would be very costly to do that. You've got to get the ductwork
Okay.
over there, new power over there, the piping. It'd be pretty significant.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Anyone else have questions? I think, Jim, you had mentioned this, but the structural upgrades, not, obviously, DVS is taken out, South Range, and Grinnell, those were not included in these, correct? Or you might have said Grinnell was because we went back and did that, is that correct?
Yeah, so the cost of the music room heating and ventilating unit, that is added back into the Grinnell costs. The structural cost to enable that music room to go in is part of the sum of $616,640. Round numbers, South Range is about 600 of that, and Grinnell is the balance. So if you did want to proceed just with Grinnell, you'd want to add that structural portion of it.
So you're saying essentially total costs would be $600,000 less if we did not include South Range?
If South Range comes out, you would take away the cost of South Range and the
3.3 total.
600,000. But there would be there's money that we then need to reallocate for the development. So I think if you chose to do to pull South Range and the structural, the number is just under 4.7 million.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have, so project cost subject to change. I know in our conversations with other construction companies, I think it's 10% now. I don't know, is that what we would expect, maybe 10%? I don't want to say, I can't imagine minus, but most likely a 10% uptick over the course of these 13 months if we were to move forward, potentially?
If you move, we're giving you firm fixed pricing. So if you are proceeding, and we can proceed here by the end of September, if not desirably sooner, our pricing's fixed to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
One question on the variance there is about 300,000. So if we remove South Range and you said things are going to be reallocated, can you just speak a little bit to the reallocation of those funds? Obviously with volume, I guess other projects increase, but can you kind of just explain that a little further?
Yeah, so it's about, round number, about 6%. And so up front, we did 100% design for all of your buildings with the exception of East Derry. And so the design development of Bob's time and our team and then outside engineering, including structural, were all just fixed costs. And so if we pulled Derry Village, which we did, that amount of Derry Village got reapportioned into these projects. That's why I wanted to footnote, if you were to do a compare and contrast of June 20th to today, there is a difference. And then if you were to pull South Range, then the South Range and Derry Village gets reapportioned into a smaller pool of buildings. So that is the reason.
Just absorption.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other further conversation or questions? I guess, actually, further questions for Honeywell? All right, well, we appreciate you taking some time. It's always good to, well, I don't want to say always good, not when there's a $7 million price tag, but it is nice to see you guys. And thank you for coming out here. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your summer, and I'm sure you will be aware of the decision that we make.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're happy to stick around a little bit if you do have questions, if
Okay.
that's helpful.
Yeah, I guess now we can open the conversation up to the board, and we can get some thoughts on, I know, like Jim said, came back here in June, and we asked when the decision would need to be made, and this is where we are, right? It's around that time, I think, like Jim laid out, there, if we want to get these projects done, if we want to use the ESSER money for, I don't want to say reimagining, but for upgrading our HVAC system, then we have to do that now, for lack of a better term. Yeah, I guess thoughts, concerns, questions? Jason?
I mean, my concern is the investment of almost $3.35 million into South Range. And given, with the discussion that we just had with removing it, to Jane's point, puts us at 4.7, gives us about a $200,000 buffer versus what we have in ESSER 3 funds. Personally, I don't feel confident or comfortable investing that number into South Range, given some of the other discussions and talking points that we've had around investments that need to be made. You're talking an additional, almost $3 million on top of what we have in available funds, so.
Yeah, and I maybe, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have done this first. Maybe I invite Jane and Jeremy. I'd love for you to participate as well, and get really, some of the thoughts of the administration, as far as, hey, this is the proposal for doing everything, right? The whole 9 yards. Knowing that we do only have a fixed amount of money, and there would be additional funds that we would need to essentially add to the budget, if we were to do that. So I guess, I'd love to hear from the administration to kind of get recommendations and what your thoughts are around that. And then, I don't know, maybe that would give us an opportunity to kind of continue that discussion.
I agree with Jason. I don't think the board is looking at this point to add monies to the budget. I may be wrong, but I think the idea behind this was to use the available funds that we had left, and we made sure we had some funds left in ESSER and a decent amount of funds, and it would make sense at this point to do what we can do with those funds, which I would agree with Jason that would mean leaving the South Range off, and that will keep us within the ESSER budget. I think Jim said 4.7 approximately, and we'd have that little bit of buffer.
Michael?
I would say, obviously, we're gonna have the discussion a little later on what our renovation build options, where we're going with that, and if we are, looking toward. If we're looking at building a new school to replace the South Range school, it doesn't make any sense to invest rebuilding its entire HVAC system. So I think once we make that decision on where we're moving forward with, the entirety of the facilities plan, that will kind of work itself out.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. I think the question obviously that pops to the top of my mind is, with the decision that we've made to, reconfigure, South Range is still a facility that will house students, and, I'd love to be able to upgrade that. But I guess the question would be, if we don't upgrade that, what is an alternative solution? Is there an alternative solution, a viable, cost-effective solution that, does give us the ability to, I don't know, again, kind of treat all of these facilities as fairly as possible, I guess, is for lack of a better term.
And I mean, is that, Jeremy, you have opinions on these items? No?
I don't have an opinion, but the fact is South Range needs new brick veneer, which was $3 million. It needs a roof. That's another $1 million. And then this is more millions. So, I mean, we have the facts. We know the age of this equipment. We know that it needs to be replaced at some point. If you don't do it now and we kept South Range, then in a couple of years, it's going to have to be done because this equipment is past its life expectancy as it is. So it's not really an opinion. That's the information we have.
So I guess, I appreciate that, Jeremy. The question, I guess, now is, I mean, and I don't think it would behoove us to make a decision on this right now, obviously where we are discussing facilities discussion, and I'm not talking, when I say now, I mean right at this moment. I mean, I think we need to make a decision tonight. I don't know if right at this moment where, again, we don't have again, we have other topics that we're discussing, but, if other people feel differently, I think in my mind, I do have kind of a thought process of where we're going. I agree with Jason and with Austin and with, like Jeremy said, I don't think putting, roughly $3 million into the HVAC plus the brick veneer, like the structural issues that we're having and the unknowns of what else we might be seeing or we haven't seen yet, along with the roof, I think it would not be the wisest financial decision to invest that much money into the facility based off of where it is today. But I also would like to, have a more clear picture of, long-term where we are going and what we will be doing with the facilities as well. So for me, it does seem like, if we were to go through that list of buildings, South Range is, for me, the only one in question of whether we could do something or we could find an alternative. I don't know if that's the consensus of the board, but again, I would certainly entertain a motion, or we could, again, we're going to be having a facilities discussion about a few different things that we could make the decision at that point as well. But again, like I said, to start this off, I think we do need to make a decision on this tonight. We talked about this back in June that, over the summer we needed to be thinking about this and we needed to be thoughtful about it. And, I think with all the information that we have, there isn't necessarily anything that we're lacking at this particular moment. So.
I personally feel like we should have that facilities conversation and then come back to this so that we are clear on what we're doing with facilities and then circle back.
Anyone else have any strong feelings?
I'd agree with that.
Okay.
All part of it.
All right, well, we will kind of revisit this conversation here shortly. And with that, I will pass it over to, I believe we're going to start with Joe and Kim to start the restructuring plan conversation.
So we're going to sit up here because we have some members of our committee that are here tonight. We told them we would not force them to come sit next to us up here, but we wanted to give them the opportunity. We'll give them shout outs for staying at a school board meeting that is certainly going to go beyond 8 p.m. And we know everybody has lots of things going on. So let me see if I can pull up this. Can't see far away with my glasses on. I can't see close up with them off. Okay. So just to be real, we'll try to be brief in our talking, so to leave you guys time to ask questions. So just real quickly, Kim and I were charged with putting together a team of stakeholders to give feedback about what a 5th and 6th grade intermediate school would look like. So we tried to tackle the charge of investigating different models, getting feedback from multiple groups, and then eventually making a recommendation. So we'll kind of walk you through our process and then kind of where we landed. Just real quick about our stakeholder group, Patty Thomas and Christina Kaskowitz are back there. They represent a teacher and a parent and a professional educator in another town. But we had roughly 15 teachers from elementary, middle school, 7 administrators, 2 other staff members, 26 parents, and then 3 school board members that kind of served in that group. So roughly 50 people responded to our ask to kind of come together. Not everybody could make all the meetings. Not everybody, there were people that were there every single time. There were people that were there once, but we sort of appreciated. And then obviously people sent questions through email and things like that. So we'll try to get to everything that we talked about. Kim, you can interrupt me at any point in the speech.
You're doing good.
I know that I can ramble. So like I just said, we solicited some feedback from the staff members, parents, administrators. We invited school board members that were part of this curriculum subcommittee to join us. We started meeting in May. We had 5 meetings between May and most recently last week, 2 weeks ago, August 10th is what Kim tells me. And during that time, we collected data from other 5-6 schools. We looked also at 5-8 school information. We toured all 3 of the existing 5-6 schools in the state, and then we conducted a Zoom sort of interview discussion with our stakeholder group and a team from one of the 5-6 schools that was willing to meet with us, and that included administrators, counselors, teachers on that team. And then we kind of slowly refined our ideas about what we thought was in the best interests of kids and families in the 5-6 program. School, and then we presented some of those ideas to the school district administration to get their feedback. So feedback from principals, assistant principals, and central office staff. So that's kind of like the process that we have taken since beginning of May to where we are right now. And you guys can interrupt me also and come on up if I leave anything out. So here are some high-level things that we took away, some big lessons. And there was a lot of consistency. We heard a lot of the same things over and over again. One of the big things is that the 3 existing schools said you really need to think carefully about recess, that the social emotional sort of benefits of recess for 6th graders is tremendous. Currently, our 6th graders don't have recess, and our 5th graders do. And they said, don't even think about cutting that. So there was a strong recommendation. Talked a lot about this idea of an intermediate school should be focused on the developmental needs of what 5th and 6th graders need. And so there are lots of, we could spend 2 or 3 hours exploring the developmental needs of kids in this age group, but we're not going to. Specifically, there are things that we already do at the elementary schools that are really supportive. We've got some great after-school activities. We've got great team building activities that happen at the elementary schools. We also do a lot of those things at the middle school. So we spend some time kind of doing some Venn diagrams of these are great activities for some older students, these are great activities for some younger students, and then these are the sweet spot where we really need to pay attention to some things. Got lots of advice about creating community, both for students and staff, and really for parents as well. Intermediate school is sort of in that middle ground where kids aren't quite full-fledged adolescents. So having a supportive structure, a developmentally appropriate supportive structure, creates a sense of community and belonging. And then that the transition is challenging. So we need to make sure that we support families and kids as they transition. We talked a lot way back when we were exploring this idea as a district about the effects on kids. And we heard this from the schools that have made this switch. Some of them have been doing this for more than 20 years, and some have been doing it for, I think Wyndham might be going into year 5. Okay, Christina says maybe, yeah, 4 or 5 years. So there's kind of a range. Now, one of the things that I heard often was, when you're transitioning kids from small little elementary schools that are very neighborhood based, and then they come together in a common school, that can be a source of stress for students because they're social, their peer group is changing. It's not necessarily the physical brick and mortar building that is scary. It's, am I going to know anybody in my class? Are my friends going to be around? So they said you really need to pay attention as you move from 4th grade to 5th grade. However, what we heard is that one of the great benefits is once that transition is made, you create a community of kids that then go to school together for the next 4 years before they go on to high school. And so as they transition from the 5-6 school to 7-8, they're moving with their entire cohort group. So it's not really a new peer group that they're moving into. So that, I thought that was a interesting bit of advice. Trying to not take too long, Kim. So here are the big questions that we really tried to grapple with. We really needed to focus on instructional models. So we know what instruction looks like right now in an elementary school. Our students, for the most part, are in single classroom settings where they're with one teacher for the majority of the day who teaches math, science, social studies, reading, writing, all the wonderful things that elementary school teachers do. And they leave their room typically 1 period a day and they go to a unified arts class of PE or music or computers or art or library. And then we know in our middle school model, students are on 4-person teams of 85 to 100 students. They have 4 different core teachers, and they have 2 unified arts teachers. So they see at least 6 different teachers every day. And so what you see up here were the 5 different options that we explored. And we also went off the path here, and we explored some pretty non-traditional ideas as well. But we really kind of focused around these big 5 ideas. So each time, well, not each time, but several times throughout our 5 meetings, we asked people to share where they were feeling most comfortable in terms of the instructional model. So you'll see in this meeting, we actually had a separate discussion among parents and a separate discussion among staff members, partly because we wanted to honor the fact that different groups have different worries, concerns, so we wanted to give time to that. So you'll see on the left here are kind of at the end of that meeting where parents were feeling was appropriate. The top was 5th, the bottom was 6th grade, and then you'll see staff members. And then we continued to talk about this. So on June 1st, we actually had a conversation with staff from Bedford. I can't thank them enough. They were outstanding. Sorry, the paper is wrinkled. It had to get back to the office in my truck. So, but at the end of that meeting, we asked the whole committee again, and this time this was parents and staff together. I don't remember if the colored stickers were by person or did we just had 2 different colors?
2 different
of
colors.
Stickers? Okay. So after this meeting, in our notes and talking to the stakeholders, we said, that is as close to a unanimous decision you can get to without being unanimous in terms of 5th grade. There was a pretty strong consensus that 2-person teams seemed pretty appropriate for our 5th graders, mostly because it's a really nice sort of developmental, gradual change from our single classrooms that are in K-4. But as you can see, there was more need to discuss in greater detail what perhaps 6th grade teaming structure should look like. So that's what we spent our next meeting doing. And we actually had groups put together presentations and pitch different ideas. We actually had three different groups put together presentations, and then afterwards we asked everybody in the stakeholder group who's there to cast votes on now after those presentations, after doing more reflecting, where do you land? As you can see, some people were creative and they decided to rip their stickers in half, and we didn't give them any rules that said they couldn't do that. But for the most part, again, a consensus started to form around 3-person instructional teams at the 6th grade. So here's what we're here to propose to you today. Based on the feedback that we've received from our stakeholder team and from the principals, I should we should say that after our fourth meeting, we presented findings and recommendations to the principals and the central office staff. And then we got a lot of feedback from them, right? Concerns, we went back and forth about instructional time, and we're gonna show you a slide in a minute that looks at instructional time. We took that feedback and then we brought it back, Kim and I, to the stakeholder team, because we said, listen, before this goes before the school board, you all deserve to hear, because you've been working on it since May. So on August 10th, we met with them for that fifth time, and we shared that feedback, and which has kind of brought us to this piece right here. So an approach to 5-6 school where fifth graders are in 2-person teams and sixth graders are in 3-person teams. The unique piece of this that really came from recommendations from our stakeholder group, which were met very, very positively by the administration, was being creative in the use of space, which means if you're familiar with West Running Brook, there are 5 classrooms in each pod, and each pod kind of is its own little world. They have a set of lockers, a set of bathrooms, and shared common space. So the idea that we have here is to put 5th grade and 6th grade students sharing pods. They wouldn't be sharing classrooms, but they'd be sharing some of the physical space. We saw that as having lots of benefits for kids, lots of social emotional benefits, but also lots of instructional benefits. Although we would still be doing our primary instruction at grade levels, we're not really at the place. I mean, I am, but I'm not sure everybody else is, to do multi-grade classrooms. And we're not here proposing to do multi-grade classrooms to start out, but we are saying that once you get to intervention time and you need to be targeting the specific needs of kids, breaking them down by you can only work with 5th graders or you can only work with 6th graders, that there would never be a 5th and a 6th grader who have the same instructional needs. We just know that's not true. So this provides some great opportunities. It also, if you think about the school as being a big school, a slightly smaller house, and a house would be a collection of a couple teams of 5th and 6th graders, and then a smaller team. So your 5th grade teams would be 2 classrooms. So kids would have a social group in that team area of around 50 students. And your houses would be a little bit bigger, and then your whole school would be the whole school, all 5th and 6th graders. We also believe that for scheduling purposes, the middle school day and schedule is the most appropriate for the types of things we want to offer these kids, which mean more unified arts offerings. So right now our students rotate through a 5-day schedule, so they get PE, art, music, computers, and library. Our feeling is that these older students, and that's at the elementary school, are really ready for some more offerings that include things like foreign language, some STEM activities, facts, media. There are lots of opportunities that we can take advantage of in this schedule. Middle school day is also a little bit longer than the elementary school day, so we're able to get a little bit more instructional time in that model. This is a lot for a slide. I think this is what you should not do when doing a presentation, put too much stuff here. But this is high level with a little bit more detail of the stuff that I just explained. I can come back to that in a minute, but for the purposes of looking at things that might, I think this slide can be really helpful for people to break down the school day a little bit. Again, for some of you who don't like charts and spreadsheets, this could be overwhelming, but the important part to look at is we have about 395 minutes to work with of instructional time in a middle school day, and we have about 380 minutes in an elementary day. So how we carve up that time, it's complicated, but we think this is a reasonable approach for a 5-6 school that has a pretty similar amount of core instruction and intervention time that kids are receiving at the elementary level, with slightly less unified arts time that they're receiving at the middle school level, and more social emotional support, because obviously our middle school kids don't have recess currently. We're going to stop and let you guys ask lots of questions, and we can come back. I know I did skip over this. A big piece that we heard from both in these public meetings and from members of our stakeholder group, from the school administrators and from the other schools that are doing this, is social emotional learning is an important thing that we need to consider. This is early adolescence. So those of you who have had 10, 11, 12-year-olds understand what we're talking about. So recess is developmentally appropriate for this age group. We also think this is a great opportunity to introduce things like advisory, which we do have at the middle school level. And we've been doing a lot of training around responsive classroom practices. There's a lot to learn in that area that can assist teachers with how to run really healthy, developmentally appropriate advisory groups. We also think, as we already said, there's great benefit to having multi-grade social groups. So as a fifth grader, you're gonna have relationships and interactions with sixth graders in your pod. And that we think is really good for kids. We do a lot of it at the elementary schools currently. A lot of our fourth and fifth graders work with kindergarten, first graders, second graders, and it's really to the benefit of like everybody involved. But also another benefit is these sixth graders move on and go off to the middle school. And then in year 2, these formerly fifth graders become sixth graders and build a relationship with some younger students. When they move on, they go to a school where a good chunk of those kids they already know because they shared locker spaces and instructional areas with them. So didn't want to skip over that piece. I think we've talked about a lot of these, Kim, but if there are things that you all think we can talk more deeply about, we wanted to pay attention to the building. So as you may recall, last year we made an argument that a 5-6 school and a 7-8 school we thought was the better approach if we were going to create this model as opposed to a 5-8, because West Runningbrook and Gilbert H. Hood are designed differently. They were designed in different times, different eras. And they afford different types of sort of structures for kids. So we believe that a 5-6 school is going to look different than the 7-8 school. Another really great benefit to this is beginning in 5th grade, every child in Derry has an equitable, consistent educational experience. It's really hard to maintain equity when you have two paths that never intersect, right? So we have kids that never really intersect into, in terms of instructionally until they get to high school. So you have kids in this town that the first real time they're in class together is in a school of 3,000 students at the high school level. This is a great benefit that we can take advantage of. So I think we're gonna stop, if Kim is okay stopping there, and open it up for questions, because we wanna. And do you guys want to come up at all?
So while they're making their way up, just a shout out to the teachers, the staff, the parents, the community members that did participate in this as well. I think, I don't know, I would say all things considered a pretty good process. Got a lot of feedback, and I'm sure there was a lot of compromises made as well. So yeah, I again, just appreciate everyone's involvement in this, and I think we all talk about this. Please continue to get involved and work with us when the opportunity arises as well. So thank you, guys. With that, I'll open it to questions, comments. I know for me, individually, I was at the last meeting, but I know Kearney and Brenda, as part of the subcommittee, the curriculum subcommittee, you guys were there. So I don't know if you guys want to kick things off with your thoughts on the process or questions that you guys might have.
Yeah, I definitely have a couple of questions. I know that one of the main concerns was what will the process be for teachers and staff, and for that professional development and ensuring that they feel comfortable going into this model.
Yeah, so the biggest next hurdle that we will be tackling, we've already started tackling it, is the assignment of staff to the appropriate schools and grade levels. One thing that we did last spring was we surveyed all teachers and we asked them what their preferences were. We've also collated that with their certification levels. So we have a lot of staff in our district that hold multiple endorsements, which means they're licensed to teach in multiple different places. And then we have some people that have a single endorsement, right? So we need to take all those things into consideration. In terms of professional development and support, we have allocated 6, you all did in your calendar, 6 early release days this year And our plan is to use some of that time to really support teachers through the transition process. First, we need to decide who's going where and who will be transitioning, and then provide as many supports as we can. We've got a pretty resilient staff, a pretty talented staff. We were just working over the summer. Patty was on my social studies team, and we've been looking at curriculum and competencies and I can statements with an eye toward the future. So I do think a lot of teachers are already thinking about this and aware. That's not to minimize the fact that transitions will be hard. It will be a challenge for some people, some greater than others. Austin and I met with the DEA back in the spring to provide them an overview of this whole process and answer questions. So I do think there's a lot of collaboration there.
Great, thank you. I'll limit it to 3, I promise. How will the special education and support programs be integrated into this 5, 6, 7, 8 model, and ensuring that they're still getting as well of an education going into this? Have we thought like that special education part?
I think Laura would be a great person to answer that, because Laura's been a part of the leadership team on this.
This is on or not? Is this on? No.
Or any added benefits that you see from this model?
I think that the special ed service delivery will remain very similar. I think the students will get the same benefits as the students who are not identified, with socially, having, the peer groups, the integrated grade levels for interventions, I think is a benefit. One thing that will change is we'll have to have programs at both the 5, 6 and the 7, 8 level, so students have the opportunity to be with their grade level peers.
Awesome, thank you. And then just what metrics and evaluation are we going to be using to measure how well this model is going, especially since it's something brand new that we're doing? Have you guys considered how we're going to track what's working, what's not, and how we evolve this model throughout the years?
I think it will be an ongoing assessment through our NEWA data. We'll keep eye on all of that. We have baseline, and we'll keep progress monitoring throughout the whole process to see. Also through our intervention data, all of that data will be collected and it'll be analyzed throughout the whole time.
Awesome. I want to commend all of you sitting up there right now. I really enjoyed the process of going and attending these, and I really think that you've done an incredible job with it. So thank you so much. And I'll leave it to some other questions. If no one else has some, I still have some.
I have a lot of questions. No, go ahead.
I was going to say that this is all great. This is exactly what I'm like. I'm 0 for 2 tonight. This is all great. I think this is exactly what we've been looking for in terms of, where everything is going in terms of how the schools are going to be structured. I mean, like my son is going into 4th grade this year at Grinnell, so he's going to be in your first 5th grade class at West Running Brook, so particularly invested. And so everything in this presentation was definitely, what you see as the positives. What do you think are the biggest challenges that you're going to face as we go into this?
Yes. How about you? Do you want me to? Yeah. Okay. I think anytime there's a change, there's challenge with it, and we just have to embrace the change. We talked a lot about transitions. I'm currently teaching 6th grade, which is a transition year. We spend a lot of time working with kids and families and making them feel comfortable in the school. We've added more tours. We're kind of already thinking about ways to better transition students into our building to begin with. And I think that's a challenge going forward, and I think we just continue with the trajectory that we're on right now.
Brenda?
Here comes the negative girl. So I'm glad to hear that we're working to improve transitions now. We should do that anyway, no matter what we're doing. I know that we did start doing that at one point, and it probably fell apart at maybe right prior to COVID, where we had 6th graders come in prior to school starting and had a field day, kind of like Pinkerton does. I'm struggling to see how all the students are going to fit into the school and move from class to class. I'm struggling to see how special education is going to continue to be delivered in the best, that's not the right word, the way it is now, and have different programs in different schools, in different age groups. I'm struggling to see where they're going to be, knowing the number of students that will be at West Running Brook. We're talking about equitable. So I'm concerned that we don't have an equitable education in both of our middle schools now, because I thought we did. Our middle school teachers work with Pinkerton. They work together. They have PD days together. So I'm really honestly disappointed to hear you say that they're not equitable, because that concerns me a lot, because we should be doing that now. Is recess the only social emotional piece that we're going to use with 5th and 6th, and 7 and 8 for that matter? I know they're not going to have recess, but they need something. And I'm also trying to understand, we're moving toward competencies, which gives kids a lot of flexibility, or not kids, teachers, a lot of flexibility to flex to students who have different needs, different educational needs, whether they're special education needs or whether they're gifted and talented needs. I don't know why we need to change our model to do that, because I thought we were already doing that. So I guess I have a lot of questions and a lot of disappointment right now in my head.
I don't know if I can answer all your questions, and I'm not sure all of them were questions, because as you said, some of it's just disappointment. So I guess I could start with the equity piece. So to the extent possible within our control, I believe that we do everything in our power to ensure equity between the two schools. And I don't begrudge any administrators, teachers, school board for any decisions that create any inequities. But in reality, we have two different experiences. We have a West Running Brook experience and a Gilbert H. Hood experience. And if we're being honest, it's impossible to make them identical. And shared common experiences at the 5-6 school will bring us closer. And I would say that no two children have the same experiences. So I don't want to try to pretend like there's ever a way to make things perfect. But that was part of it. There was another equity piece which I jumped past and I didn't really get into it. We saw as a benefit. So, and this has to do with our music programs. Right now, our music programs at the elementary school level, for the most part, happen before or after school. And that is the gateway into those programs. So in order to participate in band and chorus in most of our schools, you have to have parents that have the ability to bring you to school or pick you up after school. And one of the benefits of coming to a 5-6 model is we can introduce the band and chorus program within the school day. And there may be ways to do that at the elementary school, but it's really hard, and we haven't been able to successfully do that. I do think we do a great job at transitions. I don't necessarily think that we're doing bad at that. I think we do pay careful attention to that. I think we'll do this sort of change gives us an opportunity to refocus on what are additional transitional things that we can do. Some things because of COVID, right? So we've had to sort of rethink the needs of our kids and how they've changed since COVID. In terms of space, so we're estimating West Running Brook to be about 700 students, which is quite a bit smaller than it was previously used. And I don't think anybody wants to go back to 1,000 kids or 900 kids at West Running Brook. Some of you in this audience or teachers probably worked there. I don't know if you worked. No, you didn't work there, Patty, back then. But I know that I worked at Gilbert H. Hood when we had just under 1,000, and there were Paul actually probably worked at West Running Brook. So this is quite a bit smaller than that number. We've actually mapped out the school. Laura and I have spent a lot of time looking at classrooms to ensure that there is space for NECC, ISLE, Project Me, those categorical programs, because It's really important. Laura kind of hit this. Another, again, I guess you'd say an equity piece. Right now, if you're in one of those categorical programs, when you go to middle school, your school is determined based on where the program is located, because we have one Project Me program. So all Project Me students go to West Running Brook, even if they live in the Gilbert H. Hood district, even if they went to school at Barca and 99.9% of their peers go to Hood. This model allows us to remedy that issue. Now, it's not perfect. As Laura said, it means we need to create new programs. Now, some of those programs might be a little bit smaller, because instead of housing 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they'll be housing 5th and 6th, or 7th and 8th. And there's pros and cons to that, right? More specialized attention to those program kids that need it, and perhaps less program peers to those kids. So we want to make sure that we're pushing services in as much as possible. I may have missed other pieces.
Joe, could you expand on what we heard from the teachers from the schools that have switched to this model, and how they had mentioned that they were very afraid of this at first, but then once they got into it, they found that they would never want to go back?
Christina might be able to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I can talk about that a little bit. And before I do that, I just want to talk about, there's pros and cons in anything you do in education. There's pros and cons in anything you do in life, right? And I think aside from the pros and cons, if you could take away from this presentation today the collaboration that Joe and Kim allowed to occur for this process, you should be proud of as a school board and as a district.
Oh, and I absolutely don't disagree, and I was not casting stones on, any administrators or any teachers for that matter. When you hear something that you don't know is happening, and you, honestly, I spent a lot of time in school, so I was surprised. I don't like to be disappointed to think that things are not what I think.
I mean, obviously, everything is ever evolving, right? So as long as the collaboration continues, and Joe and Kim and the district puts their hats on and are creative and continue to research this process, I think it can be as positive as we want it to be. Are there pros and cons to it? Absolutely. I work in a 5-6 school as an administrator. I worked in a K-8 school. There's negatives to that. There's negatives in any size of a building you have, but I think if we can look at what the positives will be, that will be perfect. In terms of the special ed, that's kind of my area of specialty. I look at the smaller programs as a huge benefit for kids, not having too many kids in those. Is it hard to get kids? Yeah, but I think overall, the process was collaborative, it was thoughtful, it allowed for investigation on what will be best for it, and maybe it won't be the best option. Maybe it will, but I don't think we'll know until we come out of it on the other side and allow the change to happen. Just like Patty said, teachers don't like change. It's just one of those things. You like your comfort, but as long as you can have a positive outlook on it, I think you can make it a positive experience.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. And perfectly said, in my opinion.
As far as the differences between the two middle schools, just so parents whose children may be entering the grade levels of which we're discussing right now, in the past, it was a frustrating situation where, for instance, and it was no fault of anyone's, and it's circumstances that we had. If you were a student at Gilbert H. Hood, you could take Spanish and German. If you were a student at West Running Brook, the student could take Spanish and French. So there were some limits there. We had tech ed in both schools. If you were to sit in a tech ed class in each of those respective schools, you'd think that they were two completely different courses. Both fine, both adequate, but so much different. And now I think what it does is it brings out, the other thing is that I looked at the minutes and how that they're going to change in terms of instructional minutes that we have. That's got to be a huge benefit. But this definitely does address those disparities that occurred over the years, and some of them just, I mean, they used to have German in both classes, but you can't find German teachers. But you know, those things there are really were limiting factors in terms of the offerings that a student could take with them, and this minimizes, or at least minimizes that effect. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that some of those disparities weren't nebulous; they were very, very concrete.
I just wanted to thank you.
To that for the curriculum. I'm sorry. Now you got me talking, so you're stuck with me. I was kidding. Must be the genes, I don't know. In terms of curriculum, as much as you guys do cross-curriculum work from Hood and West Running Brook, there's a big difference to being next door to your peer in the same grade and working together and collaborating to plan curriculum. So if you're seeing each other once a month or twice a month, that's a big difference, just to what you're saying, Paul, in terms of being able to prep and make sure that you're teaching the same content.
I just want to echo the sentiment of thank you for putting so much time and effort into this committee and the members that participated as well. Like Michael, my daughter's going to the 4th grade at Barker, so she'll be at the first class of West Running Brook too. So I'm excited to see that, and I'm happy. Thank you for everything you do. And I just want to share some feedback. My wife was part of the last committee, I think in August, and she talked to a 5th grade teacher, and they were excited about this. And it's the first time I've heard that feedback, you know, that kind of feedback. They were excited. They're looking forward to it. I think the comment was, we should have done this a long time ago. So I appreciate that comment. And I don't know, she doesn't speak for everybody, but it was nice to hear that. And once again, thank you guys again for putting the time and effort in making this a successful transition. So thank you.
I was going to say something similar, that, I mean, I'm glad to hear that this has been such a collaborative process. I mean, I know that, you know, these guys can sit in a room and come up with whatever ideas they want, but if you guys don't buy into those plans, they're going to fail. So I'm glad to hear that there's been so much input from so many sides, and that, I mean, it sounds like, you know, you guys are happy with the way things are going, and other people are happy with the way things are going. So I'm really glad to hear that.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board?
I just wanted to say thank you as well. I know personally this is something I have been looking for a little bit of time as we work through this, and my daughter's in 7th grade and will be in 8th grade in Hood during the transition. So the big thing, and I think somebody talked about it, was just the feedback from the group, right? And what's the sentiment, the teachers, what are the thoughts? And, you know, David brought up the excitement about doing it, but in that small group, you can tell by the work being done here, it's super intentional, and you brought up, you know, the collaborative piece. What's the environment been like in the room, right? And what are the questions, and what does the dialogue look like? So from a high level, what's kind of the feeling of the room, the atmosphere?
I took down all of the questions. I would be welcome to share that with you, and that was kind of what I based some of my questions off as well. But anytime I heard a question from one of you guys, from one of the teachers, I made sure to write it down and kept a list. But go ahead and answer.
I'll speak from a parent perspective. There were meetings when I left at the end of the day, and I said, Joe, you are the most patient person, and I appreciate that, because I think it was genuine conversation. People felt comfortable genuinely saying how they felt and expressing what they were looking for. I don't think people were persuaded one way or the other to say, this is what I want or this is what I don't want. I mean, the day that we came up with that multi-age thing, I think I was like shocked that there was 15 people in that group for it, and I was like, whoa, I never even thought, you know what I mean? But the teachers felt comfortable speaking up, definitely, and were vocal, and I think it was genuine conversation, and it was a happy medium what the end product was. That's my perspective.
I think being able to talk openly among school board members, administrators, parents, teachers of all levels, it was inspiring. I think we disagreed, we agreed, we came to consensus. It was, if you look at the data from our first meeting versus our last meeting, conversations, questions, get us to a point where we say, we can get behind this because it makes sense for kids. We kept coming back to kids, and I think that's why we came to this committee. It's why we feel passionate about this change. We have a lot of, we change curriculum constantly to meet the needs of our students. We change yearly. So we can't forget that we're already in that process, no matter what we do. So we're gonna be able to do this too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And not saying any further, I appreciate this. I would probably say this is where the hard work begins is, we've planned it, now we have to execute. And, it's not all going to be rainbows and butterflies. There's going to be challenges, but I think having, a growth mindset and trying to get better on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and like Patty said, having the thought of, the students in mind and improving that is, is going to lead us to be successful. So to all the teachers and all the staff that are about to go through this transition in the next few months, thank you beforehand. We as a board, I'll speak for all of us, we are here to support you. I think you have I know you have the support of the administration as well. And so again, it's going to be challenging. That doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It's going to be hopefully very rewarding as well. So thanks. Thank you for everyone participating again. And here's to a successful transition for everyone.
Again, thank you.
All right, Cliff, you're up with the technology update.
Good evening. This is not a full technology update. This is regarding our website and the information. First of all, considering the restructuring plan. So since the last meeting, and Michael had kind of inspired me while we were sitting over there that I needed to redo a lot of what the information was. So ChatGPT and I got together and outlined a new web page. And then we put together this graphic here with some input from the principals last week. And it takes you to this new restructuring information page that kind of gives you an overview of everything that's happening in this whole process. This is a dynamic page. I added to it while Joe was presenting. I put a link to his presentation within the resources that are down at the bottom. But benefits, this is a link to the timeline that he references quite a bit. And then there are frequently asked questions. And if you have another question that you don't see being answered here, please submit that to Kathleen Holtzman, and we will work on that and provide an answer here on the page. Here's the resources. There's the link right there, the West Running Brook Intermediate School presentation. So it's a dynamic page that we want it to constantly be changing as the process evolves, but to keep everyone up to date as to what is happening with it. Any questions about this page? All right. So we use Google Sites. We are one of 4 districts, I think, in the state of New Hampshire. I have a list here of 35 districts that I've been going through, finding what they use for their tool for their websites. And out of 35, 4 of them including us, use Google Sites. It's free, but it's very limited as to what we can do with it. I made a mock-up of the Derry Cooperative site using Google Sites to kind of emulate what Salem has in their district. And some of it, when you first look at it, looks pretty good until you start looking at these types of things, which I tried to emulate there. It crops the pictures, and there's no way that I can readjust them without making them huge. Down here, it cropped my picture of the restructuring site. It's very limited as to what we can do to make it look nicer and easier to use. All of this has to be done manually. There's no automation to any of it. There's very little dynamic interplay with this type of a web tool. So I have been looking at other companies And in those 35 districts, I came across 12 different companies of websites. And you can see here the different districts and what they use. I've been pricing them. An implementation where they come in and they create your site for you and put it all together and then train you and provide support, and then what the yearly hosting cost is. And I have all that on this other spreadsheet, but the average price of an implementation is like, what was it, $12,000, $13,000 to get. Now that's the average. That took the highest at $17,000. No, not $17,000. $7,500, and the lowest, which would have been around $2,900 to do this. And then you have your yearly hosting fee, and the highest there would have been $9,525, and the lowest would have been around $250. But you get what you pay for there with support, mind you. And so the average yearly hosting fee is around $6,600. What I need some direction from the board is, do you want to spend that kind of money to get a better product? I mean, this isn't the last time I'm going to come to you and talk to you about this and I don't expect any kind of decision tonight. I just want to present you with some of the facts of what I've been doing, listening to all kinds of demos. My head is swimming with all the tools. There are so many wonderful things out there that different websites do that if we go with any one of these products, I think you'll be pleased with the difference in the way the website looks and how easy it is to navigate and how it can be used to effectively communicate the district's mission and vision. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to share this document with the board members, and each one of these names of the districts has a link to their website, so you can look at what it looks like and see the little tools that they have. And I will say that there is one tool there, Parent Square. There is no New Hampshire site because they just released the product in March. And so if we went with Parent Square, we would be the very first district in New Hampshire to do that, but certainly not the last, because there are a lot of districts right now that are signing on with Parent Square as their alert system, and they're very pleased with it. In fact, as I talk to some of these companies, they also do alert systems. They're all talking about, yeah, we're working our way up to Parent Square and the stuff that they offer with that. So that's something to think about.
What's the cost of that one? Just before you move on, what's the cost of that one?
Parent Square, the cost for implementation is $4,500, and then it's a $7,600 yearly hosting fee.
Thank you.
Which the first year would be $12,144. And that was kind of in the middle. The So Simple is the one that Pinkerton uses, and they have two tiers. You can go with the custom design, where they spend a lot of time, which Pinkerton did, which was $30,000 to build their site, or you can go with their prepackaged theme, which was $7,000. And we all know who paid for Pinkerton's website. So, anywho, but their yearly hosting fee is $4,800. So they come in average on that side, $7,000 for a theme, which is what everybody else has as well. So it's about $11,000 to do what Pinkerton has, and there would be a little bit of uniformity there with that. So there are lots of things to consider. I have, when they've asked for a timeline, I've said we probably would not be able to go live with anything until January 1st, because it takes 6 to 8 weeks at the very minimum for them to move all the pages into their site and customize it for what we need. So, and the decision-making process and everything. So, any questions, comments, anything you want to see?
First of all, great on the site about the restructuring. That looks great. Everything is in one place. Very nice job. And also we already use Parent Square for communications, right?
That's correct.
So would there be any benefit to using the same tool for two different things? I think everybody's used to having a million different apps for for school, so.
Yeah, the benefit, and almost all, or at least most of these companies offer an alert solution tied with their web page so that they integrate well together. And so, yes, a logical choice would be to go with the Parent Square site, which is why I had the demo, and they are working to make that as seamless as possible. So yes, there is a great benefit to going with that direction.
All right. Yeah, no, I agree with Michael as far as the website update. Yeah, I guess knowing that we have 6 to 8, or we'd have to if we backtrack 6 to 8 weeks from January 1st, so that's November, right? Or the beginning of November, end of October is kind of the timing. So I would say, you know, if not, then
We'd like to go before, we'd like to
Correct.
get started before that if possible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I would say, you know, like Cliff said, go through these. I will, I mean, just first glance at this, there's a lot here. I would say if, you know, my feelings is, you know, Parent Square can, you know, checks off all the boxes that we have that continuity. Maybe there's some financial benefits to that as well. Maybe they can sweeten the pot as just bolting that on. But I don't know. Yeah, I think this is great. We can take a look at this, and I think over the course of the next few weeks, when we come back, we can give Cliff some direction on that. Or Cliff, I think we would also take your recommendations as well. But looks like Kearney or Jason. Sorry, Jason and then Kearney.
Am I on? No.
No.
Here we go. Great start here. Thank you. It's nice to kind of see it in person finally and have everything kind of be where it should be. The one thing that I would ask personally, and Jonathan, you kind of hit on it, what might just be bring something like if when you do the research and you know, you're kind of the expert, the SME for the district, between your research and the benefits, not asking for like a huge business plan or proposal, but a couple different options based on what you think would be the best fit from a cost and then from a you know, a platform standpoint, and then present that to the board, and then maybe we could vote on kind of the options or the option that you bring to us versus us trying to have to kind of run all these to ground and figure out what's what. I'm not an expert on it. I trust that you'd do the right thing by the district and then bring that to us to make a decision.
I totally agree. My only request is that if you do see somebody's site out there that you like and you feel like it flows, you know, when I was working at Hampstead, I had a community member always said, have you seen Salem's site? Have you seen Salem's site? So I built our site to look just like Salem's, and then they changed their site, you know, and so, but if you see one that you really like, please let me know, because based on their tool, that could factor into the equation.
I just want to echo, you actually took what I was going to say out of my mouth, but I'll expand a little bit. First, I really do like the direction of this website. I think it's a really important step, and especially a lot of the transitions that we're going to be going through as a school system, that we do update our website so that we can actually communicate with the members of the community better. But I did want to echo, that's what I was going to mention, is there one in particular that you like best, but also if you could bring like one that was a little bit lower priced, one that was middle priced, one that was higher priced, and then what you get out of those. I feel like that would be really helpful for us to weigh, okay, these are the benefits that we'll get for this amount of money, and what are those benefits going to align with us moving to this 5-6 model, with us change, like what do we need, and having that kind of broken down would be helpful.
Will do.
Any other questions or comments for Cliff? All right. Thank you so much, Cliff.
You're welcome.
Great job.
All right. We will be moving on to the facilities discussion. So I think we'll start with the Davis demographics student forecast proposal. So you guys should see in your packets a Davis demographics proposal. Austin, I don't know who from the if there's anyone from administration wants to go over the highlights here. But I mean, it looks pretty straightforward to me as far as, you know, 10-year forecasts, and looking at, all the information as far as historical birth data, potentially, potential areas where, there might be more housing built, or, just all that stuff. But I don't know if anyone has any questions regarding Davis Demographics. I know we work with them extensively, and we've worked with them in the past. So, I feel pretty confident, and I don't really have too many questions about this and the study that we're doing, but anyone else on the board or the administration want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. So this request has been around for about over a year now. People in town have been asking about it. There's a lot of information put out there by concerned residents who throw out different numbers that may or may not be accurate. And I've heard it at town council meetings, heard it at school board meetings. So I think doing this project will hopefully give us accurate data for the next 10 years, obviously, and it will hopefully quiet down the misconceptions that may be out there, or maybe certain people are right or wrong, whatever, but I think that will kind of put any doubt to rest of what we look like in 10 years from an enrollment perspective, and I think this is a worthwhile investment to do that, and quite frankly, it's been advocated by a lot of people in town, so I think it's worthwhile to do, and it kind of checks off a box for a future discussion that we have tonight. So that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else want to add to that? Jane?
When we talked to Lauren about what the difference was going to be from the redistricting to doing the 10-year enrollment, he was doing a very cursory review for the redistricting and sort of the what-ifs and looking at the scenarios. This would be a full 10-year enrollment projection, and he would be working with George Sioris here at the town to get information on any new buildings or projects that are coming up in the future and anything that's been brought before the town. So we'll have a very accurate scope of what's going on.
Thank you. All right.
I move to accept the Davis Demographic project for enrollment data for the next 10 years.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion on the table from David to move forward with the Davis Demographics project. We have a second by Kearney. I'm not going to do a roll call vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0.
I'm just going to make a comment about 10 years. So 10 years is pretty soft when you get to that 10-year point. So I think we need to, well, whoever's here needs to be cautious of looking at 2 years or 3 years, 5 years, and then 10 years, because 10 years is going to be soft.
Sure.
You say 25? Further, like, what do you?
No, I'm just saying that when you look at 10 years out, you have to continually update, because the 10 year is really a soft number.
I got you.
Yeah, and I think in the past we've done updates to this. I don't know when the last time we did a 10-year enrollment projection was, but I feel like it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So I could be wrong. But yeah, let's move on. So the next thing that was in our packet was a contract from Lovely Brenzinger. So for those of you that may or may not know, a couple weeks ago we did meet and we did a workshop with the administration, and actually this kind of goes hand in hand with the warrant article options as well, as far as figuring out, or as far as taking the next steps and figuring out what our long-term plan should be as a district for our facilities. And so part of that was that you'll see here in the packet is the Lovely Brenzinger, where they would essentially be going in and updating a lot of the work that we did in the last year, or I guess 18 months or so now, with regards to potentially building a new school. I think one of the major changes or additions here would be also the addition of what to do with the South Range property should we build a new school. And so, I don't know, this is, I don't know how yeah, this conversation isn't just about the Lively Brensinger contract, I guess. It's also about, our long-term goals and plans and trying to be strategic around that. So I think actually, I might just kick this over to the Facilities Committee. I know you guys met, was it last week? 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, and this is a conversation that, along with administration, and along with the workshop that we did a couple weeks ago, brought us to where we are today. As far as, all right, what will be our next plan as far as a long-term vision for facilities, and I know we talked about this earlier, but what we will be doing with the HVAC, maybe more specifically to South Range as well. So I'll open the floor to, I don't know if David or Jason or Michael, one of you guys want to start where things are from a facility standpoint, or, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, Jonathan, so we, this year in facilities, we try to take a different approach. I think when we go to our facility meetings after our board meetings, we kind of take what we've talked about in the board meeting and try to develop a process, a plan, a path to move forward, right? So, that comes to this contract we have in front of us. I think from our June 20th meeting, there was a lot of discussion, obviously around Derry Village closure, but we all had a lot of discussion around moving the path of building a new school. I think a lot of sentiment was expressed that night in that favor. So we took that, we met, we've been meeting throughout the summer pretty regularly. And, we had LaValle Brensinger come in about a month ago in our July meeting, and we gave them some thoughts on that. We gave them some criteria to come up with this contract. And one of the big pieces of, like Jonathan said, it's not just going towards a new school. I'm sure you've all read this contract, and there's a decision that needs to be made regarding South Range in here. So one of the feedbacks we've gotten over the last 18 months is, if you build a new school, what happens to South Range? That's really what a huge concern was, and that question was asked at our legislative committee meeting a few meetings ago. And, I didn't have a really good answer for that, but I think the committee met, we talked to the administration regarding this, and one of the things we came up with was, obviously, move in the direction of a South Range closure, right, if we do a new school. And what we would do, what we would do with that land was demolish the building and leave it as a park and not sell it for condo, apartments, or whatever the case development you want to put there. That was a thought that came out of the committee, actually a recommendation that came out of the committee. And as you see in this contract, that's right, it's right on there, on the development of some sort of park in that location moving forward. Obviously, there's a lot more work that needs to go into it to make that happen, from a multiple people to talk to, whether it's the town and ourselves and whoever we need to do to make that happen or move in that direction. But, what we have in front of us is a decision to make. If the sentiment that was expressed at that June 20th meeting is the direction we want to move in, I think the decision tonight is, we move forward with this LaValle Brensinger contract as is, or any feedback that people have. But the one thing I will caution everyone is, the one thing I try to learn from our experiences of last year is we didn't make a lot of decisions in a timely manner. So, I think the one good thing about our committee is we're trying to bring decisions to the table for you guys to look at, take in consideration, and vote on. I'm not saying they're always right or wrong. We're 3 people. We try to take the collective body as a whole, what we've heard over the last several months, and this was our recommendation from the committee. LaValle wrote up the contract based on our specifications from the committee. And I'll say, as I started to say, one thing I would caution is, we can't table this tonight. We have to move forward with some sort of decision, right, or yes or no, whatever that decision needs to be. It's August 22nd. LaValle has work to do here, so the timelines, they're not super tight, but they are tight. And, delaying this to 9/12 or 9/26 meeting is just really not an option at this point in time. I think we need to make a decision, move forward, and commit to something that will get us where we need to be long-term. And this is one of those options to discuss tonight.
Jason or Michael, do you guys have anything that you'd like to add to that?
There we go. So Austin and the administration have made it pretty clear that a new building is needed and desired as part of the long-term strategic plan for the district moving forward. I will let everybody know our facilities committee has committed to meeting bi-weekly on the Thursday after our scheduled public board meetings. So these discussions, I mean, we've all been talking about it, these discussions and what we're looking at aren't happening in the blink of an eye. There's very deliberate talks, and we're looking at all of the reports, the volumes of pages that we have over the last few years, as we kind of start to talk about what we think and what we want to bring to the board, what makes sense, both in the short, the medium, and the long term for the district, for the students, for the taxpayers, for all the stakeholders. And I think, you know, what LaValle Brensinger has done for us in the past, the body of work kind of speaks for itself. Coming new onto the board this year and looking at their renderings and their plans, I think the quality of work is there. And I think, you know, what we get for that investment is pretty significant, particularly as we kind of, you know, the facilities committee thinks and believes that, in conjunction with the administration, that a new building is the best path forward. So, you know, I would make a motion to accept the LaValle Brensinger contract and move forward as it's written, and get the process going to kind of continue to meet the guidelines and the timelines that they set forth for us at a previous meeting.
So Jason has made a motion to move forward with the LaValle Brensinger. That's a first. Is there a second?
I would second the motion, and I hear you. Can you hear me?
Try again. Oh.
Now it's on, right? Yep. Okay. So I would second Jason's motion, and I would also say that, I mean, I think that this is, you know, this seems to me the direction that we're going in, and you know, this is what is needed. You know, we need a plan for you know, what that next step is going to be. I don't know if we're going to discuss, you know, the next item is to discuss the, you know, 4 options we discussed at our facilities workshop. So, you know, that'll be kind of more directing where it is exactly that we're going. But I mean, if we are, you know, I think at least those of us in the facilities committee feel that and the administration feels that the new school is the direction that we need to go in. And, you know, we need to have a plan that we can be able to put out there and show people that, you know, this is what we are working toward.
So first by Jason, second by Michael. I'll open this to discussion. Anyone have any thoughts? Okay,
Yeah, I want to thank everyone on this committee. I know that I have personally given you guys quite a few calls, and you've always been willing to talk it out and tell me where you guys are at. So I want to display that confidence in how you've gotten to this point, and that you didn't just quickly come to this decision, but it's been very, very thought out. I think I've been very clear from the start that I think we need a new school. I think Derry is actually in desperate need of a new school, or at least starting the process of getting there. So I 100% agree, and thank you guys for your work on this.
Paul, Brenda, anything you guys want to add?
I'll just add that I think it's disappointing that South Range families are now just hearing this, that their school is going to close.
So I don't think okay. I appreciate that. I'll be honest, I don't think that decision has been made yet.
Well, if you read this, it's pretty clear, right?
Okay, well, we haven't voted on anything yet. But anyways.
So why do we have this? Why do we have this document from LaValle that has all these timelines in it?
I can totally answer that.
Thank
So
you.
one of the biggest criticisms we received last year when we went down the new school path was, what's the plan? We made a vote to close Derry Village and South Range and go for a new school. So one of the biggest complaints that we had last year from South Range residents was, what's the plan for my school? What are you going to do with my land? You haven't even made a decision. Everyone's get that question. We used to get that question all the time. We get emails. So, you know, people cannot agree or like this plan. I don't begrudge that, but The one thing I'll say from the facilities committee perspective, we've heard a lot of things over the last year and a half, and we try to take those into consideration when we make these decisions. I think we've done that a few different times. I won't go over the list here, but this one was a big one. Like I said, one of the biggest complaints was, you have no plan for my school. Won't be there anymore. What's going to happen? The unsettlement. There was a lot of anxiety around that fact. At least we're putting it to paper. We're being upfront. We're being honest. And this is the direction that the committee felt was the best way to go.
And I don't disagree with you. I just think it's disappointing that, similar to Derry Village, they're finding out tonight. Like Derry Village found out their school was going to close that night. They didn't expect it. It doesn't feel good to me. That's all.
Agreed. Paul, is there anything you'd like to add?
Nothing substantial. It's just that I think that it depends upon how the execution and planning of the park from the property where South Range sits now. I think that the one thing that we've all learned, if we didn't know already, was the sense of community that the people in that neighborhood have. And I think that this would be a nod towards that, and saying that, this is an area that is a central gathering point or function area. I think that, I don't know if anybody here has been down to Griffin Park in Wyndham, and that's a multi-use. It's got athletic fields and things like that. It's much bigger. But the fact of the matter is that I think if you did it the right way, you put trees there and walking paths and things like that, I think that at least that is a somewhat of a compromise, saying that, this is something that's still a viable neighborhood and a place to gather. And frankly, it scared the living daylights out of me when I envisioned having, a scar on the ground, or having, more houses there, or having nothing there, or anything else. I just thought that was, and it become an attractive nuisance, for lack of a better term. So this assuages at least some of those concerns that I had.
So one thing that this committee has tried to do, and I think, I don't want to speak for Michael and David, but we're trying to be proactive with things and listen to feedback and come up with solutions, as Paul just alluded to, that make sense for the greater good, versus things happening in a vacuum and saying, well, the school's got to close, and then we'll sell it to generate some revenue, and whatever goes there, it goes there, and that becomes whatever. It's a secondary thought. Our thought is how do we come up with a solution that works and adds value and doesn't take away from the neighborhood aspect, the community aspect of the South Range School community that's in place now. I think all of us, every one of us up here, all ears with regards to solutions and other options or alternatives, but this, I know there was a lot of discussion around this, the park and playground and multi-use and fields and things. This seems to make the most sense, should a new school pass in the future.
I just want to echo that I feel like we should maybe not have the park concrete, though, just in case the community does come back with feedback, because this is the first time that they're hearing it. So then maybe, have you guys heard from because I do think that community does build in parks, and you're able to have community events there, and I completely agree a park is the best choice. But I just worry with it being the first time that they're hearing it, to not have, huh? Okay. But still, I do love the idea of having a park there, because parks really do gravitate to community. You don't lose that community aspect that you guys love so much there. You can have those weekend barbecues. You can have a wide variety of things in that park, and I do think it's a great idea, but just while we're making a vote on it, I'm not sure having that concrete may be the best option.
Well, as part of the process, Kearney, is, they'll have public listening sessions like they had in the past, where they bring the community to the table and say, this is what we're thinking, kind of thing, and you'll see what they prepared, whether it's the new park, new school, whatever the case may be. So there's more to it than just saying, do it and get it done kind of thing. There will be open dialogue and discussion with the community, as we have in the past.
That's exactly what I was hoping for, so thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I see this as we are, what we are getting here is a plan. It is not, we're not building anything yet. What the plan is, that they're come up with is not going to be set in stone. There's still going to be time for that discussion to take place.
That's my point.
All right. I have a few thoughts on this. So when I go back to the meeting we had on August 8th with the workshop, and we met with each other, I asked the question to the other 6 of you guys, what do we need? What do we need in regards to figuring out what we can do to figure out a long-term plan, right? Whether that is, because when we met 2 weeks ago, there was 4 options kind of presented to us as far as, we have option 1, which is a new school with repairs, option 2, which was what I would consider to be doing minimal repairs on a 20-year bond, option 3, which was really putting $100 million into repairs and renovations across the district, and option 4, which was the $30 million of repairs, I guess, as well. And so when I think about that, the couple of things that we talked about were, understanding what the timeline would be and really having a full force plan. I think this is the beginnings of that. Understanding, what warrant articles we would need to put on the ballot. And then really I think one of the biggest things was, the facilities website along with the messaging. And we talk about educating everyone in the community as far as why do we need this. Probably the thing that stuck with me the most was actually a comment that Joe made, which was, all right, well, if you think about long-term planning and you think about, you look at the age of our buildings, it's very logical to think that a 6-year-old building or multiple 6-year-old buildings need to be majorly renovated or replaced. And understanding what the total repair cost would be, the budget impacts, all the benefits, and I think if we were able to lay all of that out, then we would have a strong story for why we would need a new school. I also think that this particular idea of, having a plan for South Range, that land, is very important, because, like Paul said, nobody wants that to be an old decaying building or demolished and have nothing there. And it does give us the ability to, kind of work with or give back to the community as far as what that land could do. With all that being said, I'm not sure we're there yet. I'm not sure we have all of our ducks in a row. I am not sure that, we have a well thought out plan that gives us the ability to, really educate the public and get buy-in from the public. And so I understand the potential want and desire to make a vote tonight. My inclination is actually to table this until the September 12th, to the chagrin of, I'm sure, many. So I would actually motion to table this vote until the September 12th meeting.
Second.
That's a first by,
Yeah, we have a motion on the table to accept it.
For La Valley Brensinger.
Oh, yeah.
okay, I thought we could table it.
I have to withdraw the motion. I didn't realize it was seconded, sorry.
Okay,
You can
sorry.
withdraw the motion, the initial motion.
Well then,
Then
I stand
you can
corrected.
amend, huh?
I stand corrected.
Plan all in all, actually.
Or maybe they want to vote on it.
I guess, I hear what you're saying, Jonathan, and I'm not discounting what you're saying, but at this point in time, I think, you've been here for 2 years, I've been here for a year and a half. I don't know what else we could present to anybody that would make a difference one way or another. It's either, I don't want to swear, but it's get off the, crap, get off the pot, right? I mean, we gotta make a decision and stick to it. Last year, we took the easy way out. We didn't stick with it because we didn't get building aid, and that was fair, and I'm not, but then we did a Band-Aid approach that made sense. We don't have that Band-Aid anymore. Jane's gonna go into the unreserved fund discussion. We don't have any more Band-Aids. We're done with Band-Aids, we just don't have them. So we have to make, and you're right, we need a long-term plan, and I think from our school board goals, you're creating a strategic committee to talk about that long-term goals. And I think the current discussion today, besides LaValle and the options, is like a 1 to 5 year look at what we're gonna do. We need longer, obviously. I agree with you 100%. But I don't think that discussion happens today, or we need that committee to get up and running and start that conversation of what happens beyond 5 years for much longer term. But at this point, I'm at a point in time where I just can't do it anymore. Like, I can't table anything. We need to make decisions. There's plenty of information to make those decisions, and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I certainly understand the sentiment, and I think, I agree that, we will need a new building at some point. There is I think there is and I don't want to say this, it's not inappropriate. I think there is a more appropriate way in which we can be, I guess, thinking about this, and that is maybe a little bit more inclusive as well. And again, I think, in the grand scheme of things, we talk about not rushing things, and I don't think we're rushing things either. But when I voted the way that I did, last, I don't know, January, December, to move forward with this reconfiguration plan, I was under the assumption that is the plan that we're moving forward with until we can no longer move forward with that plan. And you might be there where we can't move there. We have to move forward, right? I think we do have a little bit more time to make sure that we do have all of our ducks in a row, and that when we finally do move forward with a new school, that we have the buy-in, that when we put it on the ballot, it's going to pass. And that's just, again, that's just my thoughts. And, like I said, I really think when we left that, that workshop a couple weeks ago, I was not planning on coming into this meeting and saying, hey, we now need to move forward with building a new school and making that decision. I think there's a lot of irons in the fire right now. We've just started this reconfiguration process. We haven't even started the HVAC process as well. And so, yeah, that's just kind of the thought process I have. Again, I guess if we don't withdraw the motion, we can vote on it, and that'll put an end to this discussion.
I hear what you're saying, and you make a lot of good points, but the one thing I would add, is what you got to keep in mind is, how long can we keep South Range going before something catastrophic happens that we have no choice to put money, significant amount of investment into that school, that we don't, if we want a new school, that's not the ideal kind of situation. I don't know what that timeline is. I mean, it could be tomorrow, it could be 3-5 years from now, but I think the one thing when you consider this, and I get it, the new school won't pass this March. I get it. Probably not. And we have to, I'm just being realistic.
I think it could if we do it the right way. That's what I'm trying to say. But again, that's just my opinion, right? So there's 7 of us up here. There's a motion on the table. I don't know if there's any, Kieran, do you have?
For it to pass, we have to be united, and this is the right decision. And I think we already have all of the data that we possibly could need. We've talked about this for two years going in circles now and dragging our feet. It's like at some point you just have to act and start planning with that action, because you can plan all you want, but until you make an actual decision, you're just going in circles.
Great. So 2 things. One, I agree that we need to be united once a decision is made. Those are 2 different things. Whenever we make a vote, there's going to be dissenting opinions on both sides. After that decision has been made, and I've said this many, many, many times, that once we make a decision, we need to move forward with that thought process, right?
So what's preventing you now from making that?
Because right now, the decision that we've made is to do a 5, 6, 7, 8 reconfiguration and close Derry Village School. We have not made a decision to build a new school. So that's kind of where my thoughts are. I don't know. I feel like we spent a lot of time on this. I would say if 1 or 2 more people have comments, I'd say let's wrap up the discussion on this topic.
I would
I would say looking long-term, yeah, like, I mean, the new school is the way that we need to go. I mean, you know, looking way down the road, I mean, basically every building that we have, except for Barca, is in need of a full renovation. You know, the price that we were quoted, you know, last time around with the Valley Breinsinger to renovate South Range School was 30 million to renovate, or 75 million to build a new school. That's 40% of the cost of building a new school right there, just to renovate the school that we already have. And you're pretty much guaranteed, I mean, any contractor is gonna tell you that at that percentage, build new. You know, it doesn't make any sense to put that much money into renovating that building. So, and, you know, like David said, if we, you know, keep kicking the can down the road, I mean, you know, South Range has significant problems. It needs a large amount of investment. You know, we talk about it at every meeting. And, you know, if we know that building is going to need to be replaced at some point down the road, how long do we continue to pour money into it?
I agree. I think I guess, yeah. I'm not sure 2 weeks is going to make a huge difference. I think in my heart, I know in my heart of hearts, and I pushed for this last year. I think a new school is the way to go. We screwed up last year as a board. Plain and simple. We didn't do a good enough job educating the public, and I don't want to make that mistake again as to why we need it, right? So as much as I want to do it, I just think, I'm not sure this is exactly the right way, but I'll let Jason have the last word, and then we'll move on to a roll call vote.
So in order for us to educate the public, we need to have a design. So we can talk and we can all sit and talk numbers and 100 million and 30 million. Based on everything, we know that the district, the facilities need $100 million or more invested in, whether it's via new facility and a sizable investment into the remaining, or it's $100+ million invested into the buildings we have. But in order for us as a board and the administration to communicate what's possible, we have to have a design of the new school, right? So we can't communicate what it's going to look like. We can't communicate the classrooms. We can't communicate any of the benefits. We can't communicate the impact, the educational impact that it has on the kids and how it benefits the teachers without having drawings to show. So my question back is, yes, 2 weeks, but based on the Valley Breinsinger timelines, 2 weeks matters. And to me, if we're going to do a better job than was done last year in communicating this to the public, having a full set of renderings and drawings is priority one to show them what's possible.
All right. Like I said, I'll let Jason have the final word. We'll start with a roll call vote. So the motion on the table is to move forward with the Valley Breinsinger contract as written. So I will start with Brenda.
No.
Kearney?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
The chair votes no. Motion passes 5-2.
Can I ask you a question? So if this board is moving forward with building a new school, why are we going to continue with the whatever it's called, consolidation plan to disrupt the entire district now when you have a plan to build a new school? I know, I ask it every single time, but now
I think I can even answer that. I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum, that, you know, our reconfiguration plan doesn't disallow us from building a school. It gives us more flexibility, and it actually can be more financially beneficial because now we don't need a K-5 school. It now is a K-4, which now potentially could take a whole extra floor off of that building. Instead of being a 3-story building, could be a 2-story. Now again, I don't know what the plans are going to look like, but that is the reason why we needed to go to a 3-story building last year when we did the drawings, is because in order to house close to 1,000 students in a building of K-5, it needed to have three floors and make it as most economical as possible. Of course, you could have spread that out over 2 floors, but then the cost would still be significantly more that way. So there are benefits to doing this even outside of this reconfiguration. And I don't, yeah, again, I also think, again, depending on who you ask, David believes that a school's not going to pass in March. Well, even if it did pass in March, that's school building going to take 2 to 3 years from now to actually have it be built. If it doesn't pass, you're looking at 3, 4, 5 years from now before it's built as well. And so, again, change in transition is difficult and challenging. That doesn't mean it's bad. It means that, it can be hard, but it can also be very beneficial on the flip side. So again, like I said, yeah, there can be benefits, or I understand the reasoning behind it.
Just to be clear, when I made that comment, doesn't mean I'm not going to work hard to make it happen. I'm going to bust my butt. I work very hard on this board to do whatever we try to do, but at the same time, it's going to be an uphill climb. That's no doubt. I don't want anyone to think that, oh, we're going to try to pass $100 million. It's all good and well. But no, I understand. It's going to be a hard road to hoe, but I'm willing to make that investment, whether it's 1, 2, 3 years. As long as I'm here another 2 years, whatever it is, a year and a half, I will work hard to make that happen. And, if it doesn't pass in March, then we continue on with the same, consistency. That's where we fell down last year. We weren't consistent. We kind of dropped it and said, no, let's go another route. But now this year, if we're gonna make a commitment, we gotta work hard and work with the public. We've talked about many things already in our facilities meeting on how to do that communication and how to get out there and talk to people and get the message out. So we're gonna work hard to make this happen. I make an offhand comment, but really, I want this to pass in March. But realistically, I understand the dynamics of previous bond votes and just being realistic that it's going to take a commitment from everybody in this board, or future board members when that time comes. And, like I said, I'm willing to do that. And I've shown my commitment to this board and work hard to make that happen. And I have no doubt that we'll eventually get it done. But I also I'm realistic, and, I don't want to get discouraged. And I think as a board, we just need to have a consistent message and move forward. And everything you just said about the answer to Brenda's question, I think, is absolutely right. And we've talked about this at our last meeting when that question came up. So I won't bore everybody, but that's kind of where my 2 cents in that.
Yeah. And again, to put a bow on this, moving forward with this RFP or contract for these site designs, and there's no guarantee that we do any of this, right? And, we might come out on the flip side. We might come out in I don't know, October, November, December, and I hate to say this, but there are things on this that may not happen, right? And we may say, oh, well, it's going to be X amount of dollars to do a park, or it's going to be X amount of dollars to build a new school, and again, we could end up in the same position where we are now. Again, I feel confident that our reconfiguration gives us the flexibility to continue to educate our kids in a meaningful way now, but also gives us the ability to have options in the future. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next part of this facilities discussion, which is the warrant article options. So I know I think I alluded to this previously, but I believe the 4 options that we talked about a couple weeks ago were, hold on a second. There was option 1, which was a new school with a 30-year bond and a repairs for a 20-year bond. Option 2 was just really the Jobin top needs, along with some roof repairs, envelope repairs, things like that, which equated to $30 million, or I guess $27 million when you back out some of the repairs that we've already earmarked. Option 3 was again $100 million that were repairs and renovations, really across the district. And then option 4, which was fund repairs through the budget over 5 years, which was roughly about $6 million per year, which equated to $30 million. So I know we talked about this 2 weeks ago in our facilities workshop. Yeah, I'm assuming the facilities subcommittee discussed this as well, so I will kick it over to David, Jason, and Michael as well.
Thank you. So yeah, so keep in mind, these are all conservative estimates.
Get it on the screen. Is it possible to get this on the screen so people can see what we're kind of talking about. The visual might make sense if,
I'd like to look at mine on my own computer, but I can't access it.
I know Jonathan just ran through it, but to actually see what the warrant article options are would be helpful.
Thank you, Cliff.
And this is,
Should be
So while Cliff's doing that, I'll
5C.
just kind of,
Oh, nope, you're right. Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
so these four options were really a culmination of what's been discussed over the last 18 months at various points in time, or various inputs from various board members, current and past board members. Option 4, I'll go back. Option 4 is, an option that was brought up last year of repairing all our schools, including South Range, and spread it out over a certain time frame through the budget process. In this case, it would have been $6 million over 5 years. $6 million per year over 5 years, as Jonathan mentioned, for a total of $30 million. Option 3 is keeping all our schools and doing a repair/renovation with the educational visioning that was discussed with Valley Brensinger way back when, but beginning of last year. Option 2 is repairs for all our schools with some carve-outs and additions based on envelope studies and whatnot, individual reports that we received over the course of the last 18 months. So just kind of sum that up, options 2, 3, and 4 basically keep all our schools in place with no new school.
That's false. Option 3 closes Derry Village.
Of course, we've already done that. I'm talking about the remaining schools.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should have been more, so all these take out Derry Village in general. So, but option 2, 3, and 4, keep South Range, keep all our current schools in place. And obviously, option 1 is, a new school with repairs on the remaining schools outside of South Range and Derry Village. And keep in mind, these are conservative estimates. Obviously, whatever we decide, we need to, Jane, we need to crunch the numbers, make sure before we put these on the warrant that this is what we really need, and make sure it's nailed down exactly the way we want it for our warrants in March. But these numbers came from a workshop that we had back in December of 2022, where Jane consolidated the Jobin report, LaValle reports.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Cliff, is there any chance we could get the next attachment up there? Because I think this is a good summary.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think this is what David's alluding to, so go ahead. Sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
Good. Yeah, so Jane presented this back in, December of 2022. We had a facilities workshop. I think that was one of our final ones of the year where we decided to move forward with what we did. We went away from this plan. So that's kind of the genesis of the numbers, where they come from. Like I said, they're little conservative estimates. As Jonathan mentioned, the new school last year was $75 million, and that was a K-5 school. So, obviously that if common sense would tell you that if you're shaving off an addition or going to K-4, that number should come down. But we're just trying to be conservative for the presentation for today, and kind of when we talked about this a couple weeks ago as well. But any questions, feel free. But that's where we came up with these for our workshop and then discussion tonight.
Jason or Michael, anything you guys want to add here? And actually, I'm gonna maybe ask the administration or Jane or Jeremy as well. We always ask for your recommendations and things like that, but again, I think there's a lot to consider here, and I think we need to really hone in and figure out, what is actually feasible. Obviously, now that we've moved forward with the Lovely Brensinger contract, understanding, again, what does it, getting a finalized number of, okay, if it's not 75 million, what is it for a new school? And then, what can we feasibly put into the remaining schools? Because that's the one thing, again, this is another piece of feedback that we received last year as well, or this past year, is, okay, even if you build a new school, there's still now the remaining schools in the district that now need to be repaired, and be brought up to, 21st century standards as well. So, Jason, Michael, Jane, Jeremy, administration, please chime in.
I think it's important to understand that this is going to be a long road.
I think it's important to understand that this is going to be a long road, right? I mean, the new school, the renovations, the new school gets you, it replaces South Range, and then the repairs in option 1, that buys you time. The other schools are going to need to be renovated at some point. All these schools have a large amount of critical work to do, and, those repairs at least get you time. Eventually, I mean, almost, all of the buildings that we're talking about, they're old, they've received very few renovations over the years, they need a lot of work. So, I mean, I think that's something that we need to be cognizant of, that, this is going to be, a long road of, eventually thinking about what you're going to do about all the other schools down the line.
I just want to say, I feel like this is step 1, and we have to take step 1 sooner or later, and then we have a whole lot of steps to go. But that's just all I'll say on that.
Yeah, so I know, again, speaking from what happened at the last workshop, I had thrown out the idea of starting to pare down this list, right? And we had talked about, we need to start not do that at that meeting, but we need to start figuring out, what is the best solution for the district, and how do we again, the adage of how do you eat an apple one, or how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? Like, okay, like we've figured out what we're doing. Like we have decided to close Derry Village. Now what are we doing with the remainders of the schools? And like Jeremy's mentioned, with the repair costs that are in South Range, and the HVAC and the roofs and all that stuff that adds up, again, it's tough for me to say doing repairs and renovations is in the best interest of, the entire district, the students and the taxpayers as well. So how do we, again, go about putting together a plan that is feasible? And that means that is something that, we can educate everyone on, and that is something that, people can afford, because that's important as well. And I think, with the things that we look at as far as, the Barca bond that is, I would say, falling off, I think this budget year, no further need of having to put in the repairs to Derry Village. If we were to not do the repairs at South Range, that's what, $8-9 million of things that we know need to be fixed.
Closer to 10.
And so, yeah, I don't know. How do we pare down this list? It seems like, a new school is on the table. I don't know. My thoughts are, a Band-Aid approach. I'm not sure, option 4 or option 2 are really feasible, because I think that just does what we've probably been doing for the last, 20 to 30 years, is not really investing into our schools, but being more reactive instead of proactive as well. So, I mean, I'm looking, if we were to pare these things down, I'd say I'm more in favor of 1 and 3. But again, as you guys know from the last discussion, process is really important to me. It's not just about the final result as well.
Just as a cautionary note, or as a observation on option 4, this is a situation where if we were to go with option 4, it's exactly like John just said. It's exactly what we've been doing in the past, and it hasn't worked. But it also is going to. It depends upon the will of the future boards to continue with that same commitment. And we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what future boards are going to do. And the other thing is that I think this is particularly important, is to understand that that the amount of money that we commit to repairs under option 4 are going to be commingled with every other dollar that we have, that we're using for curriculum and instruction and things like that. So we're going to be back down to where we say, well, we can repair this, but we're going to have to surrender something in terms of educational offerings or curriculum and things like that. That doesn't work because it favorites. It just doesn't work. So I think there were way too many obstacles, both immediate and potential obstacles for option 4. I don't think that's viable in any circumstances in terms of the way we're discussing this right now.
So I guess my thought is, I don't see us coming to a decision on one of these warrant articles today. I don't know if anyone else feels differently. But I think if we can pare this list down to 1 or 2 and then let the facilities committee get back to, I don't want to say the drawing board, but reconvene. Go ahead, Austin.
So, just to remind the school board, the vote, and I know there's new members and so forth, was to go forward with a new school. And in fairness to the school board, I believe that articles didn't get put on the March budget because we were expecting a more favorable outcome from the state. Silly us. But that didn't happen. But I do want to remind the board that it did vote at one point to move forward with a new school. And I do believe that it's time that, and I'm not saying that's the only thing that needs to go forward to the public, but I think all of us would love to see what happens in March with a vote for a new school, because we keep talking about it. We keep, some of us keep saying that we believe the town will need a new school. So I am very much in favor of making sure that we put at least that in a warrant in March and let the town decide on that. And I'm not saying that should be the only one, but I just want to emphasize that.
So, thanks, Austin. And I said this during our workshop. I think if you look at it, and I said it a few minutes ago, options 1 and 3 are the only options that really do anybody any good, because Paul articulated option 4 very nicely. I won't belabor that point, but the schools need money. The schools need investment. They're in a situation where the Band-Aids just aren't going to cut it anymore. The facilities committee, we've met, we've discussed this at many boards. My opinion is to go with option 1 and put it to a vote and see where we shake out and move from there. I'm going to move to have the board adopt option 1 to be put on the ballot as a warrant article in March, and move forward with planning for a new school and a repair bond for the remaining schools.
Second that.
So before I accept that motion, I guess, is there I think we need to put a dollar amount on there. So would you want to amend your motion?
David kind of brought it up. Am I beholden to the figure there? I mean, I think this is a good ballpark. These aren't numbers, pie in the sky stuff that we've kind of just pulled out of a hat. Jane's done due diligence, utilized the previous report. I think this is ballpark. Somebody tell me, I don't know if I need to have a specific dollar amount.
Yeah, so that I mean, I think we do. I mean, that's just my own personal feeling. You did put, I mean, the motion is on there. It was seconded by Kearney. So I guess at this point I'd open it to discussion. But again, when we're talking about warrant articles, we need to be about as specific as possible. So that's just, I mean. I would say,
Do you feel confident in that number that's listed there? Because
All right, hold on a minute. So this is more about how we want to proceed moving forward. We have months to come up with the exact numbers from reports from LaValle. They'll give us a number for this new school. Jane will crunch more numbers based on any new information that comes up for any more repairs. But there's no need to lock into a number today. We don't have to present these warrant articles to December. We just need to pick a path forward, and then as the feedback comes in from LaValle, we'll be able to update that number. And then as we move forward with the exact repairs that we want to do, we'll have that number. Then we can vote on an exact number when the time comes for the warrants.
yeah, and again, I agree. Again, process is pretty important to me, so without, having, I would like more, more of an idea from the administration of what, if new school, fine, that's great. Again, like I said, we still need to repair the other schools. Sure. So, I mean, I would really love to have something that was from the administration that says, hey, if we're building a new school and these renovations based off of these Jobin estimates and these 1 to 3 and 3 to 5 and 5 to year costs, I think that needs to be more, it needs to be more comprehensive than us just saying, hey, we need to vote on this today to say we're moving forward with, putting a new school on the warrant article. Again, I am just one person though.
The roof's going to cave in because I'm going to agree with you. I asked the question at our facilities meeting or workshop or whatever we called it as to where these numbers came from, because I wasn't aware that they came from the December report. But we still don't really, they came from a report, but we still don't know really what these numbers equate to, right? And I'm just going to say this, I will not vote on anything that is called a warrant article without a dollar amount on it. No matter what I agree or don't agree with, I won't vote on it because I don't think it's right. A warrant article has to have dollar amount to it.
Yeah, so again, the motion on the table is to move forward with the warrant article for a new school and repairs.
This plan for a warrant article, not the warrant article itself, but this is the direction we're going to send that committee.
Then that plan is not vote. It does not need a vote. Let's say to talk about something, like, again, if we're voting on something, it needs to be something that has substance.
So can I ask you something, Jonathan? Would it make sense then to vote to move forward with option 1, and once we have the design and the plans back from LaValle Brensinger and Jane has more concrete information, to then put that into a potential warrant article? So can the board, can we move forward with option 1 and not say warrant article? Or does it have to be associated with a warrant article?
My question would be, why do we need to vote on something that isn't going to be a warrant article? And isn't it, like, again, I think if we want to, if you want to bring a motion to the table, it needs to have substance and has to be, essentially, when we vote on that, right, that's essentially the binding portion of that, right? And so, again, I think we're kind of putting the cart before the horse here. And where we don't have, again, I just don't see where this is going. I think we can't be making decisions without having any details. We have no details in this other than a new school. And
That's totally fine. That's totally fine. We made a decision on moving forward in new school. We can do warrant articles friggin' December 15th. I don't care. And then we'll have the exact numbers. So we've already made a decision to move forward in school. The decision's been made. Whether we make it today or December 15th, that's fine with me. I don't care.
Can I request a break after this? I need to walk around a second and just regather before we go forward, just like
Sure,
5 minutes.
so we do have a motion on the table. It was seconded. Jason, are you amending that motion or are we keeping it as is?
So I'll amend the motion and move for option 1 for a new school, 30-year bond, $75 million, and repairs, 20-year bond, $25 million, for a total of $100 million.
I second that.
I guess we'll do a roll call vote. Unless there's any further discussion, anyone? I'm not seeing any takers. Brenda?
No.
Kearney?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Paul?
No.
David?
Yes.
The chair votes no. The motion passes 4-3.
Can I clarify my vote? I don't think we have enough information, and David, I know you don't like that answer, but when I'm looking.
Do the work. Somebody else do the work.
When I look at this, it doesn't tell me everything I need to know to be completely sure that what I'm voting on to give to the taxpayers of this town is what, I can't explain all this. And I also don't think it's fair that we put this out to people to see tonight without all the backup. I just don't think it's right.
Your responsibility to learn it and to talk to them and to go to and have
Okay.
those conversations. That's
I
your
don't agree.
responsibility as a school board member.
All right, we're going to take,
Oh, hello, I do my
All right,
homework.
we're gonna
I'm
take a
talking about the public.
we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
And that's the work that we have to do after.
We'll be back.
Once we have the decision, then we can start on the work of this is the
I'm not
information.
arguing with you, not doing it.
We still have more stuff to do.
Thanks again for your patience. Been a very long meeting tonight, and I think a recess was warranted for sure. So now that we are all back, we will get back on schedule, and we will pass it over to Jean, and we're getting an update on the unreserved fund balance.
Okay, I just wanted to make a comment on the last one. In regards to what items would be on the repair list, some of the items, by the time we get to this and it gets approved, some of them will have already been repaired, so it's kind of a floating list. Just recently, the structure brought it out at East Derry's front entrance, and just the floor grates alone are $19,000. And that was after getting multiple quotes, and those will take about 6 weeks to get in. So Jeremy and Warren Construction are working on a temporary fix for that. But those are the things that come up that aren't even in this list. Last week, they're working on projects to get schools up and ready, and South Range had a major ceiling leak issue, which he just said it was going to be about $20,000 to fix. So this list is kind of always moving because things go wrong and things are going to break. We had an issue at Derry Village as well last week that they had to cut out a lot of sheetrock in the kitchen area. So I just wanted to bring those highlights. I can do a list now that some of these may be checked off by time that gets approved. So I can move on to
Jane?
unreserved.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Before we leave the facilities, just
That's right,
quickly.
sorry, that was my fault.
We had this conversation before. I want to bring it up again. I'm hoping the school board will vote. The administration, the recommendation from the administration is that we hold off on moving deep from Gilbert H. Hood. Conversations with Janine Metro, the coordinator, her emphasis is on an age-appropriate playground. And if we provide an age-appropriate playground for the 3- and 4-year-olds in that spot that they have at Gilbert H. Hood, leave deep there for the time being, leave the SAU just where it is, and see what happens when we bring a warrant article for a new building. And I'm hoping the school board goes along with holding off on moving deep for now and holding off on moving the SAU until we see what happens with a new building.
Yeah, and I believe what precipitated that is not only Janine's, I guess, request for playground equipment, but also I believe we got some news regarding the evaluation or assessment regarding the SAU. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Jane, but I think I remember a potential of 300,000, possibly as high as 450, depending on what contractor might be interested. But it not that hundreds of thousands of dollars are not good money, but it's a one-shot sale, and I don't know if that's something that the school board would be looking forward to move forward right away when it's going to cost us, who knows, we would have to look into this, but the renovations at Barker to move deep right now, and especially the renovations at Gilbert H. Hood to change that to an SAU central office, which we could do. But again, looking at a potential new building, we don't know if it's not the ideal location because of elevator access and what we would have to do to the front of the building. It's doable, but the consensus would be to wait and see what happens with a new building.
All right. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess I would entertain a motion if somebody wants to bring this up for discussion. But
Why do we have to vote on this again? He's making a decision to change a plan that we approved. I mean, you're more than welcome. Good, inform us. I mean, I appreciate that. But why do we have to vote on that?
I'm okay. I'm only bringing it because when we voted When the school board voted before, part of that vote was that Ernest P. Barker would become a pre-K through 4. We would move deep to Ernest P. Barker, and we would move the SAU to Gilbert H. Hood. Now, if we're allowed to make a administrative decision and not do that at this time, I don't have a problem with it. The only reason I'm bringing it forward was because it was part of the vote, so I made an assumption that it needed to be voted on again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with not requiring a vote either. I guess if we can move forward, if we want to dot our i's and cross our t's and check before the next meeting, that maybe is something that if we have to vote on it, then I would say yeah. But yeah, if there's no need to vote on it, then I think it makes sense. I think we all would have liked the assessment to say, oh yeah, we're going to get millions of dollars by selling the SAU, but that's not the case. I think, like you said, retrofitting and trying to move you guys into Hood, and I mean, that's going to offset a large chunk of the potential sale costs that we would get. So, I mean, all we would be doing would be delaying moving you guys, dependent upon what may come in the next 12, 24 months. So that $300,000 to $400,000 or $450,000 is still going to be there. It's just not going to be coming into us this year or next year. So yeah, I guess let's dot those i's, cross those t's, and if we need to vote on it, we can do that at the September 12th meeting.
Okay, great, thank you. Jane?
Jonathan, lastly on facilities, did we decide to move the Honeywell vote till next meeting? And just another concern is that I have to write grants for that, and it's very time consuming, and then for them to order their product.
Yeah, this recess definitely threw me for a loop. So yes, we do need to revisit that too, and that's probably a conversation we should have or vote. Do you think we should do that before we talk about the unreserved fund? I mean, they're independent of each other, I would assume, right?
The Honeywell project will have no effect on the unreserved fund. I think you just have to make a decision if you're going to include South Range and somehow raise $3 million, or are you going to not put a school on there?
Right. So yeah, so let's go back and revisit that conversation. So I do feel pretty strongly that a decision on that would need to be made today. On that. So like Jane says, she has the opportunity and the time to write the grants as needed. I mean, we can open up, we can take a motion to open that up for discussion. Actually, you know what, I'm just going to move forward with I'll make the motion because I feel pretty strongly about this, but I would move forward with the Honeywell project costs to spend the ESSER money on all of the schools save for South Range. So whatever the cost would be for that. So I believe it is right around $4.8 to $4.9 million. But
4.7, I think.
So 4.7. So I would make a motion to move forward with the Honeywell project without the costs incurred for South Range School.
Second.
All right, first by the chair, second by Jason. Any further discussion?
I just had a question on that. How much ESSA money would go towards that again?
Pretty much all of it, correct? We would still have maybe a couple $100,000 in ESSER.
left, I think is what
Yeah,
Jane said.
if you took out South Range, it would leave us about $200,000 to focus on unfinished learning.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote on this as well. Start on this side, David.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Jason.
Yes.
Tierney.
Yes.
Brenda.
No, and I'm voting no because we are still going to have students at South Range School.
And
They deserve to have the same air quality as everybody else.
The chair votes yes. Motion passes 6-1. All right. So I think now we might be out of the unreserved fund balance.
Okay, you should, there's a little spreadsheet in your board packet to review unassigned fund balance. We put in the prior years just so you could see our methodology of how we come to the number that we have. You can see that last year, we had a total fund balance of $7.2 million. The board voted to retain 2.5 million, and we returned 4.7 million to the taxpayers to offset the tax rate. When you carry that forward, you can see that our revenues last year were 89,455,000. Our expenditures for Fund 10, which is a reminder, that is our general fund, so that excludes federal funds and it excludes food service. And expenditures from Fund 60 from the prior year, those are funds that were encumbered and spent from the prior year. And then you have your 21-22 encumbrances that you have to add back in. You can see that 190,000 back up in the prior year. And then the 22-23 encumbrances of 101,000, which leaves a total fund balance. Again, these are unaudited numbers, pretty similar to last year of 4.7 million. We did have a warrant article for 23-24, which voters passed to reserve 1.8 million from the fund balance from the prior school year, and that leaves you a remaining balance of 2.9 million. And like we mentioned earlier, when we were going through the budget process, we had used 3 million as a placeholder when we were estimating the tax impact of our 2023-2024 budget. Right now, where it's unaudited at 2.9, I don't have to have a decision tonight. I will draft an extension that I would have to have Austin sign, and we send it to the commissioner. And if we waited to make a decision on the 12th, I would still have time. Bill has pretty much done the entire DOE 25 with the exception of plugging in what the retained fund balance is going to be. But just keep in mind, 3 was estimated. You have unaudited of 2.9. You have the 600,000 that Gordon talked about earlier, and how they came up with the 600,000, that was one of the handouts that I passed out tonight. So for the 12th, if you want to just keep in mind, how much do you want to retain, if any? How much do you want to return to offset taxes? And I think both of those decisions, I know they need to be made by the 12th in order for me to file properly. I try to keep the commissioner and the state, everybody away from my superintendents and make sure everything is sent in on time. Right, Austin? So I don't like to be late on any of my reporting, so I'd really need it by the 12th. And I'm happy to answer any questions on any of these fund balances tonight or prior to that meeting.
So I don't really have a question, I guess. I know for some of us here, we've been through this process multiple times. We have 3 new board members. But I know in the years past that you've kind of given us, hey, here's 0%, 25%, 50%, 75, and 100%. If we can have that by the next meeting, I think that would be very helpful. And then I guess the other question now with the adequacy aid the unexpected revenue that we're getting, what do we do with that? And obviously, man, I probably should ask, I wasn't thinking about it, but if we put that into the unreserved fund, do we still need a special hearing for that, or a hearing for that, or is that?
I believe you need a special hearing if you're going to retain it.
Okay. So anything that we're not putting back into the taxpayers, we would need to have a special hearing. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think going to last budget season, we knew that we would have a lower reserve fund, and I think, we've talked about trying to balance the budget and get closer and closer to having a lower dollar amount. I would say this year, my thought is just looking at this is we probably need to strongly consider keeping as much as we possibly can, knowing the challenges we have from a repair and renovations and maintenance standpoint, and unforeseen things like that. So, but I don't know if anyone else has any questions for Jane. But yeah, I think, we should all be well-versed enough to be able to make a decision by that September 12th meeting, and have all the information that we need. But I don't know if anyone else has questions.
So Jane, the placeholder in the budget is $3 million, right? So we have 2.9 here. So if we don't give it all back, we're taking a tax hit, right? For that 3 million?
You would be on the estimate that we projected. However, in October, when we get ready, we're prepping for tax rate setting, I review all of our estimated revenues that I projected during the budget process and review them. The state usually tells me what the percentage is that they're anticipating for special ed aid. We'll look at Medicaid that Laura works on, and I'll look at what I budgeted last year and what I think they actually might be. So I may add another $300,000 to special ed aid. So you're going to hopefully see some offset with those. And I think that we are able to do that, particularly with special ed aid.
So my next comment is, you made a comment that's similar to last year. Well, the biggest thing that's not similar to last year is if you take the actual activity for 21-22 with the encumbrances, it's a $38,000 number, right? Just trust me, it's close. If you look at the actual activity for 22-23, $2.5 million off expenditures to revenue. That's the problem here, not taking out $1.8 million for some roofs. So this brings me back to my request from the May meeting, when you presented the financials and you showed the ins and outs. I still want to see the special education costs that went up 30%. I want to see them broken down from what we budgeted and how we missed the budget. I want to see that, because $2.5 million is a huge difference from where we were last year. And this is why, part of the problem, if I'm not mistaken, why we're only at $3 million. Am I correct?
Well, yes and no. We did have, we overexpended in areas of our budget, but you had less, obviously, to give back than you did last year. So yes, you had, because we overspent in areas of the budget, I think my concern moving forward is more so looking at 23, 24. That really concerns me, because we are super lean this year, and you're going to see whatever you have left over at the end of this year is going to be a lot even smaller than this. And my recommendation would be to, when we go through budget process, is to estimate a lot lower of a unreserved fund balance.
Any other comments or questions for Jane in the unreserved fund balance? All right. Thank you, Jane. We'll move on. We're going to stay with you and move on to the audit.
Okay, we wanted to include the single audit from, believe it or not, they're always kind of a year behind, so this is for the 21-22 audit, and they just completed it this past spring. This audit is different than our regular full audit. This is only related, it's called a single audit. It's only related to projects that are over 700,000. So not every district is going to ever go through a single audit. So because we have revenues and expenditures in our food service program that are over 700,000, that got audited. Federal projects, that was audited. And all of my ESSER grants were audited because of the threshold. So we go through a single audit every year, because our federal funds are always going to be over 700,000 threshold, as is food service. It's a very intense audit. You can see on page 7, there are a lot of financials, and it very descriptive, goes through Title I, which are Kim's grants, the National Food Service Program, which is Christina Lebelzic's, special ed grants, which are Laura Powers, my grants that were related to COVID. So there was over $7.6 million in federal grants, and this takes months to go through the audit. And if I bring your attention to page 10, which is always my favorite page of the single audits, it does tell you that Section 2, financial statement findings, there were none. Section 3, federal awards findings and questioned costs, none. And section 4, schedule of prior year findings. There were no findings in the prior year. So we're very proud of that. I want to make sure I always thank Kim Conant for all of her work in her department, and Laura Powers, Christina Lebelzik, and our district accountant, Bill Roy. It's definitely a team effort to be able to produce the records accurately and on time. So we just wanted to make sure we put that in the board packet for you. And it doesn't require a vote or anything, so.
Any questions or comments for Jane regarding the audit?
That's a great
Thank
job,
you.
Jane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 3 in a row.
And can I ask a question? When we chose to move here, I thought the time was 10 o'clock that we had to vacate the building. Is that true?
I'm
Because
not,
it's 10:01. I'm sorry, I'm asking about the time. I understood, and I may be wrong, that we needed to leave here by 10 o'clock, and it's 10:01. I just want to make sure that we're respectful of whatever the agreement is that we made. Okay.
so yeah, Austin, I don't, Austin, I don't know if that's not something that crossed my, or that we discussed, but if that's the case, then we'll try and move quickly through this to get out as early as possible. And moving forward, I think that's maybe a good rule of thumb, if possible. So, but that was not a discussion that I think was brought to our attention.
As long as there's not an alarm that gets set, I feel like, for
I'm
tonight.
guessing there's an alarm.
Oh, okay, well then, yeah, we have to.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so I think, I think this is something we probably handle offline, not tonight. So with that, Jane, I think we are on the Pinkerton Academy end of year credit.
Yep, just being super quick, I just wanted to put this in there so you could see how much credit we had at the end of the fiscal year for Pinkerton Academy. We typically get a refund. Sometimes it's $20,000. This year it's $85,000, and you can see the breakdown of where the credits came from. I don't put the backup, but we do get backup of every student that contributes to this credit. And of course, for confidentiality, I don't put these in, but if you have any questions on these, just let me know. And we take the credit, it'll come off the first bill.
Not seeing any questions or comments regarding that, so we will move on to the Local Food for Schools Cooperative Program Grant.
This is a grant that we have been awarded for our district for $2,451.99, and this is to allow us to purchase local and regional foods that would be able to serve in our food service program. And so I put the details of it, and you can see it mainly focuses on minimally processed foods. So they're trying to encourage healthy foods, which we serve many, many healthy foods in our program. This is just a little help for us.
And do we have to vote on this?
I don't think so.
Okay, perfect.
I just want to say thank you. I did read through that, and I saw a couple of different articles about it, and I'm thankful that you put in for it, because I think it's a great program, and I think parents will as well. So if you at home have a moment to look at it, it's absolutely worth it, because it's a great program. So thank you.
It is. I guess we had action required, so if we could take a vote. Sorry, I missed that.
So I will entertain a motion to accept the grant.
Move to approve.
First by Brenda, second by Michael. Jason, sorry, second by Jason. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0. And we will keep it with you for the business administrator's update.
Okay, last thing of the night, August, we just had our pre-audit for our full audit. We had 2 days of that, and it went really well. We will have our full audit for 4 days in October. I believe it's the 2nd through the 6th. We just had the pre-audit on the 9th and 10th. A lot of it is remote, that we just upload all of our information into portal. And lastly, I just want to talk about the work that's being done in the school. When we talk about maintenance and repairs, we had some amazing projects that were done this summer. If you look at Gilbert H. Hood, to left of the building, we just had a sidewalk installed so that the kids can actually safely get back to the back of the building. It looks awesome. And we had actually a whole hallway at Gilbert H. Hood on the top floor that had the carpet removed and flooring put in. Beautiful job. So there's the library at West Running Brook, the carpet over there, all replaced. The custodians painted in there. Looks beautiful. Those will all be in the formal business administrator's report when I bring it to you on the 12th.
Perfect. Thank you. And now I believe we have policies. These are all, I got to double check, all second readings. To be quick, is there any major updates or changes? I know we talked about JLCA last time. Is that the only one that changed?
That's the only policy that's been updated. It's been substantially updated to try to address a lot of the concerns that were raised by members of the board. We modeled this policy off of the New Hampshire School Boards Association model policy, specifically trying to address some of the concerns that I think Brenda brought up around the paragraph B is that conditional enrollment that I remember Brenda had said, if we say you need to have a physical, if you have an appointment. And so we address that in the policy.
Perfect. Any questions from the board regarding these policies or the changes, specifically the changes to JLCA? All right. So I'm assuming we can make a motion and group these all together, correct? Okay.
So Jonathan, I am happy with that, except that I personally want to vote a different way than probably everybody else on DJB and DJB-A, so I would prefer to pull those out and not vote on that one as a block.
So you said DJB, DJB, and DJBA? Okay, so then, all right, so I'll make the motion. I will move to accept the policies of BF, BEA, DJ, DKC, GBAA, JBAA, JLCA, and JP-R.
Second.
Second by Michael. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Oh, to all of them?
No, BBBF.
BBBF. Okay.
Just put it as all of them, fine.
Okay. I move to approve policies DJB and DJB-A.
Second.
Second by Kearney. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Brenda, motion passes 6-1 on DJB and DJB-A. Austin, you have the floor for personnel.
Okay, I have one resignation, Sandy Ward, kindergarten teacher, Derry Village Elementary School. Accept with regret.
I move to accept the resignation.
Second.
Second by Kearney. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
And nominations that I've put forward since the June meeting. Marissa Barrick, special ed teacher, Derry Village Elementary School. Carrie Brolier, teacher of the Deaf District. Kerry Cannon, preschool teacher, Deep. Kathleen Cochran, teacher, Derry Village Elementary School. Elizabeth Curran, teacher, Grinnell Elementary School. Gertie Flagg, Title I teacher, Grinnell Elementary School. Sarah Friedrich, kindergarten teacher, Derry Village Elementary School. Jillian Godbout, special education teacher, Grinnell Elementary School. Leanne Mayer, teacher, Derry Village Elementary School. Caddy Martin, math teacher, West Running Brook Middle School. Amber McQuaid, teacher, Grinnell Elementary School. Melody Morton, teacher, Grinnell Elementary School. Catherine Riley, science teacher, West Running Brook Middle School. Brianna Tallarico, teacher, Ernest P. Barker Elementary School. Allison Zellers, speech and language pathologist, district.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Brenda.
Second.
Second
Welcome to
by
the district.
Jason. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes 7-0. One question before we move on to your next point. My assumption is that I saw some fifth grade and then maybe a sixth grade teacher in there. Every teacher or everyone that we're hiring is aware of the reconfiguration that we're going through?
Yes, everybody's been told either, most of them at their committee, but I've told everyone that I've spoken to. And one more request, although you sort of did give me authority for the summer to make nominations, which some could say lasted till September 20th, but we still have some openings, and I'm just concerned about waiting at this stage of the game for September 12th. So I'm hoping you would allow me to continue to nominate up until September 12th.
Do we have a motion to extend the hiring through September 12th by Austin?
So moved.
First
Second.
by Jason, second by Kearney. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. You have the full authority of the board.
Thank you very much.
And we'll stay with you for your update.
At the July school board meeting, I promised to provide an update on the schedule for the first few weeks of the school year. Special education assistants, teachers, and all other professional staff return tomorrow, Wednesday, August 23rd. The following day, Thursday, all staff will be present for a workshop training day. This Friday, August 25th, in the morning is a school-based training, and the opening session for every staff member is at 1 o'clock in the Pinkerton Academy Stockbridge Theater. School board members have all been invited to attend. Please make sure you've let Kathleen know if you can make it. Monday, August 28th, on an early release day schedule, will be sixth grade orientation at our two middle schools, and kindergarten new student meet and greet is Monday from 9 to 10:30 a.m. All students report for their first full day of school on Tuesday, 1 week from today, August 29th, and return for Wednesday and Thursday to complete a 3-day school week. Students and the teaching and assistant staff have a 4-day Labor Day weekend from Friday, September 1st to Monday, September 4th. School then resumes for a 4-day week, Tuesday, September 5th through Friday the 8th. And the following week is the first 5-day school week from Monday, August 11th through Friday the 15th. And just like that, we are already halfway through the month of September. Whew. Here is to a wonderful 2023-2024 school year. Thank you.
Could you just circle back on the Pinkerton event for us?
This Friday, we have our opening session. We invite we ask the entire staff to come to the Stockbridge Theater at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and all school board members are invited. If you would just let Kathleen know if you are or are not available, so we know to expect you or not, so we can save a seat right up front.
Cool. I don't believe, okay, sounds good, thank you.
You don't think you got the request? Okay, I will make sure that it goes out tomorrow.
Appreciate you.
All right?
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you.
All right, this time we will open up to committees. We'll start with the Manifest Committee. Looks like Paul, you're the lucky man.
Oh, I'm all over this like a cheap suit. Mr. Chairman, I move that the manifest in the amount of $5,506,357.76, of which $746,548.02 is general payroll, and $3,759,809.74 is general expense.
First by Paul.
Second.
Second by Kearney. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Any other committee reports that people would like to report on? Not seeing any. I know outside of the curriculum committee, we've also scheduled to meet quarterly. So I know one of the things we're trying to do is be more predictable, or I guess, I don't know, I guess that's probably the right word. It's late, guys. So I know the facilities committee's meeting quarter or bi-weekly. The curriculum committee will be meeting quarterly. Some of these others are as needed, but please check the website for updates of when we post those meetings. But I don't think in the last month, outside of facilities, curriculum, policy, I'm not sure any other committees have met in the last month or so. So I think we're good there. All right. At this time, we'll open up the floor to the residents of Derry. So as you approach, please sit down, state your name and address for the record, and we do have the lights up, so you'll have 3 minutes. Green means you're good, yellow means you're heading towards 30 seconds, I believe, and red means you are hopefully going to be wrapping up. So at this time, we'll open the microphone up for comments. And all you have to do is sit down, and I believe the microphone's on, so.
Okay.
There we
Hi.
go.
I'm Alicia Carroll, and I'm from 4 Fairview Avenue. And I just wanted to, I was listening to this at home on the TV, and I'm livid at the vote tonight that we are already disrupting our children's lives here. And now we want to go ahead and close 2 schools, not even 1, which that was the original plan A, right? That was going to solve everything, and we wouldn't have to do all this redistricting. I also think that this isn't fair. Not every single parent was probably even watching tonight to even come here tonight to talk. Not that I think a lot of you are even going to listen to parents, but I think this is something we need to keep in mind. If this was the original plan A, right, to be able to close 2 schools, consolidate and build 1, then why can't we go back to plan A? If I hope this does go to a vote, every single year I approve to, when I vote, to go and approve to increase the school budget every single year. This would be a no for me, to approve an increase to the budget to still disrupt our children's lives. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Anyone else from the public want to address the board? All right. Not seeing any takers at this time. We'll close delegations and individuals. At this point, we have other business. Is there anyone that would like to respond to the delegates or individuals, or any other business that they would like to speak to?
Well, we just have a couple of seconds. I do want to say next meeting at this time, I'm going to bring forward putting the public comment to the beginning of the meeting and not having to wait all the way till the end. Right now, I think we're running out of time before we have to leave the building, so I didn't want to bring it up now, but just if you all want to keep that in mind, I do think it's important that we move that to the top.
So there is a policy that we have in place. So I would suggest that you, I can't remember if you're on the
Let's
policy.
have that
I'm not sure if the
conversation
policy
this week.
committee or not, but that's definitely something that would be done in the policy committee. And then once we work through that, then if that gets brought to here, then that's something we would consider for sure. Any other business that people want to discuss? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
First by Kearney,
Second.
second by Jason, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Thank you for staying with us tonight, folks. Have a great night. Good luck this year.